Chapter 1. In the rainy forest, the humid air makes the whole forest seem particularly stuffy. Not only was there water vapor floating in the air, but there was also a rotten and musty smell everywhere, caused by microorganisms decomposing fruits and fallen leaves. And in this forest, there was a strange team fleeing in a panic. Huff, 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 huff. Heavy gasps echoed among the group of gnolls and dragonmen as they struggled forward toward the woods in the west. Even though the journey was tiring, they did not dare to stop to rest for even a step, as if there was a terrifying and horrifying existence behind them staring at them. It was as if they dared to slow down a step, they would be wiped out by that terrifying existence. The team consisted of about 20 gnolls and 10 dragonmen. The gnoll's hair was matted and rooted on his body, and dirty, foul-smelling saliva flowed from between his teeth. These jackals had absolutely no discipline at all, some of them would even scratch their armpits or buttocks from time to time. The gnolls lingered at the outermost layer of the group, each holding a stone axe. Although they had no order at all, it could still be seen that these gnolls surrounded the entire team, guarding the dragon man in the center of the team. Compared to the 20 or so gnolls, the dragon people clearly knew the rules better. The dragon people in the center of the team formed a 3x3 square team. At the front of the team is the dragon captain of this operation, Corver, a 2.5 meter tall, muscular red dragon wearing light steel armor. You have to know that the dragon people also inherited some of the pride of dragons. Usually, they even look down on the dirty race like gnolls. They are even more disdainful of associating with them. So you can see how strange this team composed of dragon people and gnolls is. The gnoll at the front of the team used the stone axe in his hand to fiercely chop open the huge and serrated ferns in the woods, and forced a path through the dense weeds that could accommodate several people walking side by side, allowing the team behind him to pass. Boom! Like thunder, a deafening explosion sounded from far behind. No matter who hears this kind of eardrum-tearing roar, it is impossible to remain calm. But the team did not panic and continued on their way, as if they had long been accustomed to such loud noises. However, in the eyes of some dragon people, extremely strong hatred and a little sadness were silently revealed. Before this, they had heard this sound countless times, and such an explosion would be heard almost every once in a while. The dragon captain, Corver, looked down at the temporary dimensional bag he was carrying. After confirming that the thing was still there, he breathed a sigh of relief and continued on his way. To be honest, in addition to food and dry supplies, that temporary dimensional bag also contained a dragon egg. It was the egg of the leader of the 5 colored dragons, the red dragon. In this world, the red dragon is the most brutal and vicious dragon among the 5 colored dragons. It is well known on the mainland that the red dragon will never let go of any grudge. If the owner of the red dragon knew that they had stolen the dragon eggs, I'm afraid that even the ancestors of these jackals and dragon people would not be able to save their lives. Maybe the cemetery will be baptized by dragon breath, and the areas where these gnolls and dragons live will be cleaned up. Of course, dragon breath will be used to clean them up, however, this is not the case. How could a team like this be capable of stealing dragon eggs? I'm afraid that before I get within 1,000 meters of the red dragon's lair, I will be torn into pieces and eaten alive by the red dragon's monster army. So they were not thieves, on the contrary, this strange team was sent to protect the dragon egg. Because the incident happened too suddenly, even the powerful molten mountain fire was not anticipated, so in such a tight time, only such a small number of people were able to escape with the dragon egg. At the same time, on Blue Star, in an office building, it's a rare company holiday. I have to stay here alone to work overtime? What kind of world is this? MOU complained dissatisfiedly while sitting at his desk sorting out documents. Why does my boss only let me work overtime and not allow others to work overtime? This is obviously unfair. Although he felt a little resentful in his heart, he still chose to work honestly. After all, he didn't want to lose this job that he had worked so hard to find. After working for several hours, the sun had set and the sky was already hazy and covered with a black veil. MOU took a long breath, changed into a comfortable position and lay down on the chair, looking at the ceiling of the company and muttering, "When will my luck turn around?" Sigh. At this moment, a mechanical bell suddenly rang in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to Mr. MOU. As one of the 7.5 billion residents on the blue planet, you have successfully obtained the only chance to extract the system. What? System? MOU stood up from his chair in an instant. In less than a moment, MOU reacted, followed by excitement. He used to slack off and read novels at work. He was really familiar with the system. He had always thought that things like world bugs only happened in fantasy, but now it actually appeared in reality. And it happened to him. Who wouldn't be excited? In the excitement, a system dial appeared before my eyes. 9 out of 10 areas on the wheel say, sorry, no prizes, but 1 out of 10 says, get the system. It seems that this should be the link in the extraction system. For a moment, MOU's heart beat faster and he became nervous. It is obvious from the turntable that there is a 90% chance of not winning. Even if you are the lucky one drawn out of 7 billion, there is no guarantee that the turntable will definitely turn to the obtaining system. Whatever, just smoke. Without much hesitation, because hesitation would not change anything, MOU gritted his teeth, clicked the draw button, and the system dial started to turn. For a moment, he was so nervous that he could even feel the sound of his own heart pounding. As time passed, the pointer of the turntable gradually slowed down, and MOU's heart was also tightened. He stared at the turntable in front of him intently. The pointer is getting slower and slower, and the heartbeat is getting faster and faster. Finally, the pointer stopped and pointed exactly at the acquisition system area. Then, the familiar yet unfamiliar mechanical female voice echoed in my ears, bind system. Binding successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the achievement reward system. FK. Awesome. MOU cursed and jumped up in excitement. My luck has really turned around. First, there was a 7 billion chance of being selected, and then there was a 1 in 10 chance of winning the system. He instantly felt that he was the hidden super European emperor, the king of European emperors. MOU was so happy that he spun and jumped on the spot, letting out all his emotions. With this system, I can immediately get a promotion and a raise, become tall, rich and handsome, marry a beautiful, rich, and pretty girl, and reach the pinnacle of my life. A sentence circulating on the internet suddenly popped up in his mind. You use your lifespan to draw cards. I envy you for drawing well, and you envy me for living a long life. This is an internet slang used to make fun of the European emperor, but MOU didn't care. Never mind, this kind of thing must be fake. I'm just lucky, how can it shorten my life? That kind of talk is pure deception to children, it is not allowed. Suddenly, in his excitement, his feet slipped and he accidentally fell. The back of his head hit the ground and he died on the spot. When he had just a few seconds of consciousness before his death, the familiar mechanical female voice sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for achieving, death is like the wind, always with me. Achievement introduction, death is like the wind, always by my side. I can die whenever I want. Achievement conditions, the first death is very casual, die whenever you want. Achieved, get reward, this account is useless, so open a new one. SSS level, the mechanical female voice became weaker and weaker in his mind, until the system spit out the last byte, and MOU died completely. This article is fictional. Basic combat power and factions, optional. You will understand this article better after reading. Combat power, beginner, level 1 level 3. With this strength, you are a standout among the ordinary people, an adventurer who is fully capable of protecting yourself. If you are accidentally surrounded by goblins or ogres, please don't worry about your own safety. You should worry more about those ignorant goblins, because you can easily defeat them. Intermediate, level 4 to 6. To reach this stage proves that you have made extraordinary efforts. You may be a powerful captain in the army, or an ordinary adventurer captain. You can fight bravely on the battlefield, or explore dangerous places that ordinary people dare not set foot in. If you encounter a black bear while exploring the wild, playing dead is the dumbest thing you can do. Because a black bear is nothing to you. After all, in your eyes, it is not only stupid and dumb, but also slow in movement. Of course, maybe its meat is delicious. Advanced, level 7 to 9. If you don't have extraordinary talent, then you can only work very hard and perhaps you can barely reach this stage. At a high level, you can live longer than ordinary people. You are completely capable of becoming a commander of an army. You possess powerful strength, and even among adventurers, you are one of the best. Master level, level 10. Without extraordinary talent, you can't become a master. With your strength, you can become the leader of a kingdom's legion and a role model who is second to none. Hell, you can even go head-on against a full-grown wyvern. Of course, don't get exposed to its highly corrosive venom. Legend, you are lucky enough to be one of the tens of millions of people who become a legend. Honestly speaking, it is impossible to reach your current stage by just relying on hard work or luck. It is not an exaggeration to call you a hero for reaching the legend level. Because you have broken through the physiological boundaries of the species, you will have a longer lifespan and you have plenty of time to improve yourself. You are already strong enough, so strong that almost all of your actions will affect the fate of the entire world. Those dragons that dislike you have to consider whether they can withstand your fists before provoking you. There will be more after legend, so I won't post them for now. Camp, lawful good, people who obey order and are kind. They like to help species in need and tend to be law-abiding. Angel, the holy wings behind him fluttered slowly, and dots of holy light scattered lost people. It seems that you are in trouble. Do you need help? Lawful neutral, abide by order and remain neutral. Be a normal person, have your own code of conduct and bottom line, and do what is beneficial to you. A human businessman, with a smile on his face, let's make a deal. It's good for both you and me. Lawful evil, although they are bad guys, they have their own bottom line and usually do bad things while following the rules. The devil of Bader Hell, with a strange salesman-like smile, he he he. Sign this contract, and you only need to pay a small price. You will gain great power. Chaotic good, a goody-goody who helps others out of his or her own will without considering the consequences of helping others. A copper dragon, looking angry and serious, pointing at a tree, I rescued you from the wolf pack on purpose. Is it okay for you to listen to my jokes for a few days? What do you mean? Do you think my jokes are not funny? Then tell one. If they are not funny, I will hang you on that tree. Chaotic neutral, do whatever they want, without any rules or consideration of consequences. A certain fire element, yawning with a lazy expression, let me have a good sleep. I will kill anyone who disturbs me. Chaotic evil, a villain who has no bottom line and does not follow the rules. A demon, roaring and rushing towards his demon teammate. What are teammates? All I see are enemies. I'll even kill myself when I get crazy. Chapter 2. Hiss. Mou regained consciousness and took a breath. I'm dead? No. I still have feelings. So where is this place? The first thing he felt was that he was curled up in a red, mucus-filled, enclosed space. It was a wonderful feeling. He was wrapped in warm mucus, but he did not feel suffocated. There was a faint pungent smell of sulfur all around, but he did not feel disgusted by it. This feeling is extremely comfortable, like a baby returning to the gentle arms of its mother, or like a ray of warm sunshine in early spring. So comfortable, is this heaven? Slowly open your eyes. In his sight, there seemed to be a red barrier covering himself, and this barrier was filled with warmth. In order to understand the current situation, he first observed his body. At this time, outside the dragon egg, the leader of more than 20 gnolls is named Pansy. He is an astonishing 2.5 meters tall. He is an extremely strong gnoll captain with scars all over his body. He is also a more terrifying existence among the gnolls than the barbarians. At this time, Pansy was standing beside the dragon captain, Corver. He was looking at the dragon eggs in the fire with a worried look on his face. Finally, he couldn't help but ask, Corver, it's been several days. Is it really possible to roast the dragon eggs on the fire like this? Corver glanced at the tall Pansy and said calmly, after all, they are gnolls. It's terrible that they have no culture. According to my experience, the hatching of red dragons requires high temperatures. Because red dragons have the burning field, they can emit extremely high heat. Corver turned his head and stared at Pansy. Do you have the burning field like Master Molten Flame? Thinking back to the mountain where Lord Molten Flame lived, the heat waves in his memory rushed straight before his eyes, but Pansy still shuddered unconsciously. He lowered his head, of course not. Corver didn't say anything. He turned his head and continued to stare at the dragon egg in front of him. Although he said it with full confidence, he himself didn't know whether the method of roasting eggs over fire would work. So Corver has been guarding the dragon egg these days, not sleeping for days and nights, for fear of accidents, such as accidentally roasting the egg. Their team traveled for several days before they emerged from the northern forest and reached the northern plains border. After a short rest and a few days of adjustment, they lit a large bonfire and steamed and roasted dragon eggs. Corver still secretly feels lucky that Lord Molten Flame had already slaughtered all the powerful beasts in the forest, making their journey through the forest safe and sound. How can I allow others to snore beside my bed? According to Red Dragon's violent temper, he killed everyone who deserved to be killed. The smarter beasts had already run away, while the dumber ones were still acting like stubborn donkeys, and were then turned into ashes by the red dragon's breath. As they were talking, several gnolls came back with a large pile of firewood. They were silent, habitually put the firewood on the ground, frowned and looked at the dragon eggs in the large bonfire, revealing deep doubts. Although they were puzzled, the jackals still carried out the tasks assigned to them by Captain Pansy, picking up stone axes and entering the forest again to chop wood. Pansy glanced at the gnolls and then at the dragon eggs in the fire. He felt that he had to do something. We don't have enough food. Those wolf cubs are too wild. I'm going to teach them how to hunt properly. Corver nodded slightly. Go ahead, and you should prepare more food. Don't worry, I'll be here to guard it, nothing will go wrong. I am a dragon. At this time, Mou in the dragon egg took several minutes to come to terms with the fact that he was a dragon. As a novel lover, he really didn't expect that such a bloody thing as time travel and rebirth would happen to him. Based on the experience of the previous life, with his appearance, he is undoubtedly a dragon, and the leader of the 5 colored dragons, the red dragon. Dragons, no matter which plane they are in, are powerful creatures at the top of the pyramid and the ultimate predators at the top of the food chain. Although Mou was very happy to be reborn as a dragon, he was reborn as a red dragon, which made his situation a bit awkward. The red dragon has the most standard evil dragon template. Powerful, arrogant, greedy, cruel, vicious, he was simply a being that everyone wanted to kill. This meant that Mou's future would definitely not be easy. Moreover, the evil dragon has the aura of a villain, and one day the protagonist passing by might come to fight with him in the name of slaying the dragon. Moreover, as evil dragons, the 5 colored dragons had almost no affection for each other. When they raised their children until they were 3 years old, they would cruelly drive them away, leaving the young dragons to fend for themselves in the wild. The 5 colored dragons raise their children until they are 3 years old not out of kindness or maternal love, but because of the hard rule set by the mother of the 5 colored dragons, Tiamat. Offspring must be raised for at least 3 years. The reason for this rule is that Tiamat was afraid that the mortality rate of young dragons would be too high, which would lead to too few of her own 5 colored dragon clans, so she set this iron rule. If there were no rules of Tiamat, some dragon mothers might just throw away their newborn dragon babies. Mou shook his head and decided to just go with the flow. For now, he would not consider how he would spend the next 3 years. He would first take advantage of the protection of the dragon mother and develop rapidly in these 3 years. The first step in development is to get out of the dragon egg. Look at this world. Mou used his hands and feet to prepare to break the hard eggshell. Mou's movements inside the egg caused the dragon egg in the fire to shake slightly. The dragon egg is moving. This method really works. Seeing this, Corver was delighted, and the tiredness from not having rested for a long time was instantly replaced by joy. Without bothering to extinguish the flames, Corver quickly took the dragon egg out of the campfire and placed it on the ground. As a red dragon man, Corver also inherited the red dragon's fire resistance. In addition, his attack speed was extremely fast, so the raging fire did not hurt him at all. When Corver was transferring the dragon egg, Mou inside the egg only felt the entire egg shake a bit, and then immediately became stable. He didn't take it too seriously. Maybe his dragon mother sensed him and fiddled with the dragon egg. Mou was still concentrating on FG crack. The eggshell made a crisp cracking sound. A crack appeared on the surface of the eggshell. 2 expectant eyes looked at the eggshell at the same time. Mou seemed even more excited. After all, it was his new life. It's almost there. Hit once. Again. My new life is about to begin. Damn it, I'm so tired. With his unremitting efforts, a crack appeared in the eggshell. Then he placed his dragon claw on the hole and tried hard to make the crack bigger. The area of the broken eggshell was getting larger and larger, and he didn't have time to take a closer look at the outside world. A flood of information rushed into Mou's brain without warning, causing a sharp pain in his head. Dragon's inheritance. Every baby dragon will be baptized by the dragon's heritage when it hatches and become a true dragon. The dragon heritage covers everything and is all-encompassing. It is the experience passed down by generations of giant dragons and bestowed upon young dragons. The dragon heritage can be called a priceless treasure. It is also one of the most powerful powers of the dragon clan. Knowledge is power. But this gift is not entirely harmless. One can imagine how much information has been passed down by dragons for generations. It is this ocean-like inheritance that is completely stuffed into the young dragon's brain, so it causes extreme pain in the brain. If it is successfully passed on, that would be fine, but if it fails, then this knowledge will directly explode the young dragon's brain and turn it into an idiot. The young dragon that successfully received the dragon's inheritance was called a true dragon, while the idiot young dragon whose brain was blown up was called a dragon beast. Dragon beasts are the product of failure. The proud true dragons cannot accept the existence of dragon beasts. The mother of dragons will throw the dragon beasts out of the nest without hesitation and let them fend for themselves. And the drake no longer has the intelligence and natural spell-casting ability of a dragon, it is just a wild beast with a hunting instinct. But fortunately, Mou is a time traveler. While he has the soul of his previous life, he is also strengthening and nourishing his own soul in the eggshell. Therefore, his soul is much stronger than that of an ordinary young dragon, and the dragon's inheritance acts on the soul level. While accepting the dragon's inheritance, it also included the dragon's true name with hundreds of long bites. Mou opened his mouth and spoke the first words since he was born. It was the purest and most standard dragon language. My name is Zeris Elzevinfred Gerard, Osiris. Chapter 3. When Corver saw the baby dragon hatching from the egg, he was delighted. A variety of emotions came over him as he recalled his experiences with nostalgia. Corver is a gifted dragon man and an excellent warrior, as can be seen from his height, which is nearly 30 centimeters taller than his peers. He trained hard since he was young, and at a young age he became the captain of the monster army under Lord Reincarnation. The area where Molten Flame lives is called the Flame's Nest. Unlike other red dragons, he does not have a large army of monsters. Molten Flame's army of monsters are randomly found and are very small in number. In the monster army, most of the monsters are species with red dragon blood, and there are also some gnolls who were next to the Flame Nest. Most dragons are arrogant, even kind-hearted metallic dragons are no exception, but the arrogance and pride of red dragons are unmatched by any other dragon. Even by draconic standards, red dragons are extremely vain, as evident in their haughty demeanor and proud expressions. Even the golden dragon, the leader of metallic dragons, is not taken seriously by red dragons, let alone other creatures that are far inferior to the golden dragon. Molten Mountain is also a red dragon, but compared to other red dragons, he is a little different. Rongshanian believed that his bloodline was the most perfect and was proud of it, so when he was young he spread his bloodline throughout the north. Compared to other red dragons, Molten Mountain has unimaginable patience and tolerance towards creatures with its bloodline. If a follower makes a mistake and makes other red dragons unhappy, the red dragon may crush the follower without saying a word. But Rongshanian would suppress his bad mood and punish him. There was nothing he could do. Who made him his dependent? Who made him have such perfect blood? Such a gifted red dragon naturally advances to become a legend when he reaches adulthood. Today, as a high-level legend, Molten Mountain Flame can even rival weaker demigods. Such an astonishing growth rate has shocked the entire continent. To be honest, Corver has the blood of Molten Mountain. Strictly speaking, Corver should be the 8th generation dragon man. For Molten Mountain, who is over 400 years old and in his prime, this is quite normal. After all, dragons are famous for their longevity. So there is no need to say more about this relationship. According to the human generation relationship, Molten Mountain is actually the ancestor of Corver. The blood of dragons is so powerful that it can ignore any differences between races. In addition, the dragon itself can use the magic in the dragon's heritage to make its body bigger or smaller, and can even transform into other creatures. This is why there are so many Asian dragons. Otherwise, where do you think those dragon men, wyverns, elven dragons, all came from? Rongshanian described this beautifully as creating new life, creating new species, and making a huge contribution to the diversity of natural species. As a red dragon, Rongshanian has extremely high talent. It is reasonable for the major powers in the south to unite and gather strong men to slay the dragon, but he is still alive and well until now. Because Molten Mountain Flame is so powerful, even if we gather strong men, we may not be able to kill the enemy 100%. If the Molten Flame is allowed to escape, given the red dragon's vengeful nature, the next time the Molten Flame returns, it will be a catastrophe for the entire continent. There is a story circulating on the mainland. There was once a strong man who killed a dragon for fame, but the dragon escaped. From then on, the dragon completely disappeared from the mainland, and no matter how hard the strong man looked, he could not find it. When the strong man died, the long-lost dragon suddenly appeared. As soon as it appeared, it attacked the strong man's family. No one in the family survived. Even the strong man's body was dug out by the dragon and whipped for 7 days. Almost every 3-year-old child on the entire continent of Cansterly knows that dragons are very vengeful creatures. There is even a nursery rhyme that says, if children don't go to bed well, they will be eaten by a dragon. Although dragons have huge bodies, it does not mean that they are bulky. On the contrary, they are agile and fly fast. Even if you are 100% prepared to slay a dragon, it is inevitable that the dragon will escape. Besides, Rongshanyan didn't really care about the plundering in the south. He thought it was too dangerous, and he wanted to do so-called genetic research and sleep, so he didn't want to take the time to go south. But as a red dragon, it is absolutely impossible for him to not have a treasure of his own. You know, in the world of red dragons, the amount of treasure equals the level of status. Although red dragons speak with force and advocate using violence to solve problems, no matter how powerful a red dragon is, it will still be ridiculed by other red dragons if it has no money. If that's the case, where would Rongshanyan's face be? So he either used his very small monster army to collect protection fees from the natives of the northern plains, or robbed other red dragons of their treasures. If any red dragon dares to laugh at him, Molten Mountain Flame will rob that red dragon. The degree of greed of red dragons is no less than that of stingy people on Blue Star, and even worse. The act of robbing money is equivalent to directly taking the lives of other red dragons. Despite their desperate resistance, the red dragons eventually succumbed to the fist of Molten Flame. In fact, it is not entirely reasonable to say that they surrender, because almost none of these red dragons intend to surrender, because the Dragon Queen Tiamat has made a rule that the 5-colored dragons cannot kill each other. So those red dragons are not afraid that the molten fire will kill them. Molten Mountain Flame naturally knew this truth, so when facing this group of treasure defenders, Molten Mountain Flame would usually knock them out, throw them aside casually, and then swagger in to steal the house. There were other dragons who wanted to join Rongshanyan's army, but Rongshanyan was not interested in this. He only wanted to concentrate on his own genetic creation. Precisely because Molten Mountain Flame is so peculiar, the strong men in the south did not gather together to attack Molten Mountain Flame, who was wholeheartedly engaged in genetic engineering. A year ago, Lord Molten Flame walked out of the nest, and half a year later, it came back with a dragon egg in its claws, which is the dragon egg that is hatching now. After Rongshanyan brought back the dragon egg, he took great care of it and regarded it as his lifelong great inheritance. This is Lord Rongshanyan's only dragon egg, and it also contains the purest true dragon bloodline. Thinking of this, Corver stared even more fanatically at the dragon egg that was hatching in front of him. P.S. This article is not a purely system-based article. The system only plays a slight auxiliary role. The key effort still depends on the protagonist himself. In addition, since the young dragon has little strength in the early stage, it will be very slow to warm up in the early stage. Chapter 4. My name is Zeris Elzevin Frere Gerard Dumbledore, Osiris. The roar of a young dragon reached Corver's ears. This was the purest and most standard dragon language. The dragon cub in front of him had horns on its head and wings drooping on both sides. Although it was just born, its 4 claws could still feel its power. The dragon cub's face was a little immature, but it still revealed a hint of dominance and majesty. Looking at the young red dragon breaking out of its shell in front of him, Corver suddenly knelt down. The newly born dragon, Zeris, looked at the dragon man kneeling in front of him in confusion. Why are there dragon people? Although Zeris was puzzled by the appearance of the dragon man, he could clearly feel that the dragon man in front of him had a familiar smell and a special sense of intimacy. In his unknown subconscious, he was sure that the dragon man in front of him would not harm him. On second thought, there was nothing wrong with my body's subconscious mind. If the dragon man in front of me really had bad intentions, he wouldn't have waited until now to take action. After all, the weakest time in a dragon's life is when it is just born. Ignoring the kneeling dragon man in front of him for the moment, Zeris looked around, but the huge red figure of the imagined dragon lady did not appear in his sight. Zeris wondered in his heart, that's not right, where is my dragon mother? Shouldn't my mother be staying by my side? Corver on the side looked at Zeris excitedly. Oh! Dragon god! Look, what a strong baby dragon! It looks exactly like Master Molten Mountain Flame. What made him even more excited was that the baby dragon in front of him successfully called out the dragon's true name. This proved that the young dragon had successfully accepted the dragon clan's inheritance. Corver knelt on the ground and said sincerely, Your Majesty Zeris. I am the guard sent by my lord to protect you. Corver. The dragon's heritage is an extremely large encyclopedia, which naturally includes the language basics. Various languages are summarized in the dragon's heritage, such as dragon language, elven language, and the common language of the continent. So Zeris was able to understand what the dragon guard in front of him was saying as soon as he was born. Looking at Corver with fanaticism in his eyes, Zeris thought carefully and said to himself, Kofer? My guard? Sent by my lord to protect me? That's a lot of information. But, where's my mother? As if seeing the doubt in the young dragon's eyes, Corver lowered his head, Your Majesty, you have no mother. These words exploded in Zeris's mind like a bolt from the blue. I don't have a mother. Seeing the confused look on the young dragon's face, perhaps worried that he didn't hear clearly, Corver added, Yes. Your Majesty, you have no mother. Zeris stood there in a daze. He had thought that he could live safely for 3 years under the protection of the Mother of Dragons and then face the miserable life as a dragon. I didn't expect that I would lose my mother the moment I was born. At this time, the system rings, ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the achievement, Rebirth from the Ashes achievement conditions, get new life in the flames. Completed, achievement introduction, fire can burn everything, but it can also make everything happen. Reborn in the flames, you are the new son of the flame. The power of fire will bless you. Achievement reward, Son of the Great Flame, S level greatly improves one's affinity with fire elements, control of fire elements, absorption of fire elements, and recovery of fire elements. Zeris was stunned for a moment. Then he became excited. Yes, he still had the system. What was there to be afraid of? Wouldn't he be able to survive without the Dragon Queen? I looked at the system again carefully. Reborn from the ashes? In flames? Zeris subconsciously looked behind him. At this moment, the blazing fire behind him was like a leaping fire elf, burning fiercely on the large bonfire. He seemed to realize something. Oh my god, roasting dragon eggs over fire? Although roasting dragon eggs over fire was a bit strange, Zeris didn't want to blame too much. Firstly, because Corver was his loyal guard who had been by his side since he was born, he did not want to disappoint the soldiers. The second reason is that the hatching of red dragons does require high temperatures, so this approach is theoretically fine. Corver also noticed the young dragon's gaze back at the fire, and fearing blame, he buried his head deeper. Your Majesty, I did this out of helplessness. It's okay. Note, this is the first time he spoke. The previous words were all his mental activities, which were guessed by Kofer. Don't get me wrong. Zeris waved his hand and said the 2 words stiffly. Kofer was shocked. Although most baby dragons accept the dragon's inheritance after birth, it does not mean that they can master it immediately after accepting it. Therefore, the dragon will slowly digest the dragon's heritage in its sleep. The process of mastering language usually takes 2 days for the baby dragon to speak normally, but the baby dragon in front of us can speak as soon as it is born. This is enough to prove that the young dragon in front of us has great potential. Gurgle an awkward sound was heard, it was Zeris's stomach rumbling. He turned around and started eating his eggshells. From the dragon heritage, we know that dragon eggshells are rich in vitamins, inorganic salts, and minerals, which are enough to help newborn dragons get rid of their weak period. This is why Zeris is not very resistant to eggshells. Looking at the eggshell, he closed his eyes and took a big bite. As imagined, the dry and tasteless feeling did not appear. On the contrary, I don't know if it's because the dragon's taste buds are different, but the eggshell tastes like potato chips, crunchy. Zeris excitedly picked up the eggshell and started chewing it, while Corver watched the baby dragon from the side. The eggshell was eaten quickly, but Zeris still felt a little unsatisfied. You know, dragons have huge appetites. This is thanks to their furnace-like stomachs. No matter what enters the dragon's stomach, it will be forced to corrode and digest, even steel and stone are no exception. It is not groundless that a newborn dragon can swallow food that is twice as large as its own body if it wants to. Normally, on the eve of the birth of the baby dragons, the mother dragon will calculate the time and go out hunting in advance to prepare food to provide nutrition for the newborn dragons. But Corver and Pansy did not have the same sensing ability as the dragons, nor did they have any way to judge the maturity of dragon eggs. Even the hatching of dragon eggs was a pleasant surprise. At this time, Corver also obviously noticed that the young dragon in front of him was not eating happily. He turned his head to look at the forest, frowned slightly, and silently complained in his heart why the werewolves who went out hunting had not returned yet. Corver had heard that dragons had big appetites, and he didn't want to let his little ancestor go hungry. Character story: Kofor, does not take up the main word count. Occupation: Dragon Berserker. Height: 2.5 meters. Current strength: intermediate to mid-level, level 5. As we all know, Rongshanyan is gifted and has full confidence in his bloodline. And Corver is the 8th generation dragon man with this bloodline. Corver was born in the Flame Nest and is the most promising of the 8th generation of dragon descendants. The entire dragon clan is centered around Molten Mountain Flame, and has a very high sense of belonging to Molten Mountain Flame. According to the rules set by Molten Mountain Flame, once one's strength reaches a high level, one can transform into a dragon vein through a contract, so Kofor has been training hard since he was a child with this as his goal. Unfortunately, before he could reach a high level, something strange happened, and he escaped with a group of gnolls and the dragon egg. In fact, Corver had thought about this long before the eggshell hatched. What would happen if the baby dragon, the protagonist, Zeris, could not shout out the true name of the dragon and became a dragon beast? His idea was to release the dragon beast and let it fend for itself. As for enslaving the dragon beast for his own use, forget about this method. Although the dragon beast is not as good as a real dragon, releasing the dragon beast can be regarded as an explanation to Master Rongshanyan, and it is worth it for him to cultivate this dragon egg for so long. What's more, Corver didn't want to enslave the dragon beast because it was too risky. A beast with only animal instincts and confused consciousness, without the true name of a dragon and reason, and not bound by a contract, would be a risk to keep in captivity. By then, it would be a troublesome matter for the dragon beast that you have spent a huge amount of meat and a lot of time to raise to devour its master. But now that the young dragon in front of him has successfully spoken his true name as a dragon, he should assist him wholeheartedly. If Zhuge Kongming devoted his life to the Shu Kingdom until his death, then Kofor was no less loyal than Zhuge. Chapter 5. The outskirts of the forest were lush green like summer, with birdsong coming from the trees from time to time. In the middle of the trees, there was a goat standing quietly eating grass. The swift sheep is a herbivorous sheep species found in both forests and grasslands. They can grow up to 2 meters in length, are swift and agile in movement, and can move very quickly through dense woods. At this time, team leader Pansy was squatting behind the grass a little further away with other gnolls. They were staring at the fast sheep through the gaps between several large trees. This was undoubtedly the best prey they had encountered in the past few days. It seemed that the ram was born with a special sense, or perhaps it was its own vigilant nature. When it lowered its head to eat grass, it just took a bite and held it in its mouth, then raised its head and looked around while chewing. Pansy stared at the swift sheep. As expected, this was their dinner today. Obviously, the other jackals beside Pansy had the same idea. They seemed extremely agitated at this moment, but with the captain right next to them, they still tried their best to suppress their own animality and desires. But the dirty saliva that the jackals dragged from between their teeth to the ground completely exposed their thoughts at the moment. Pansy frowned and looked at the werewolf beside her with disdain. Without saying anything, she quietly drew the bow and arrow she was carrying on her back. Draw the bow, nock the arrow, and aim at the sheep. As Pansy expected, this group of wolf cubs grew up in the Flame Nest. They had been exposed to combat-related training since childhood. All they did was fight, and no one taught them how to keep quiet. Coupled with the chaotic nature of the gnolls, they easily become excited and impetuous when facing prey. If Pansy hadn't been right next to them, these wolf cubs might have been even more agitated. The downside of being restless is... Rustle. A faint rustling sound was heard. A wolf cub accidentally made a noise because he was too excited. Pansy's frown deepened. Jiang, who was a little further away, was already on edge. When he heard the rustling sound, he ran away in fear like a frightened bird. Pansy also shot the arrow at this moment. Whoosh! An arrow flew towards Jiang. Even though Pansy predicted Jiang's actions in advance, the arrow still did not hit the fatal part, but only shot into the base of Jiang's thigh. Let the fast sheep escape. Pansy stood up and walked forward to check. The tempting smell of blood stimulated his taste buds, and the bloodstains on the ground formed a faintly visible route. Come with me. This ram has a thigh injury and can't run far. After saying this, Pansy stared fiercely at the gnoll who made the noise just now and roared, You! Go catch prey alone. No matter what it is. If you fail to catch it, you will be beheaded. After saying this viciously, Pansy led the other gnolls to track down the fast sheep, leaving the frightened gnoll where he was. This is Pansy's deterrence, but also an opportunity he gives. As long as I bring back the prey, it will be enough to save the life of that reckless wolf cub. I have to eat him or the prey. I have to eat one of them today. If it was any other hot-tempered werewolf, they would have killed the reckless guy directly. Pansy was already very merciful. Those groups of gnolls living in the wild are truly ruthless and merciless. In most packs of wild gnolls, the strongest, most deadly gnoll will be the leader of that pack. Those weak gnolls are just stored food, and will be shared by other gnolls when food is scarce. Pansy was very humane by not killing the gnoll on the spot. The thigh root is where the muscles of the ram are most developed, and it also supports its running speed. The arrow hit his thigh, and it didn't take Pansy long to track down the dying jet sheep on the ground. A knife cuts its throat, ending its short sheep life. Pansy picked up the 2-meter-long sheep without saying a word. The blood from the throat flowed down, and the other werewolf soldiers followed behind him excitedly, greedily catching the flowing blood with their mouths, not wanting to waste even a drop. Pansy shook her head helplessly. Compared to herself, these werewolves felt like uncivilized beasts. But this is normal, werewolves are monsters. Pansy suddenly thought of something and turned around. As soon as Pansy turned around, the gnolls following behind stood still again, no longer greedy for the blood flowing from the neck of the fast sheep. Pansy put the sheep on the ground. You take this swift sheep back. When I come back, I don't want to see any gnoll teeth marks on it. After leaving some instructions, Pansy entered the forest again. After Pansy left, 2 gnolls picked up the head and tail respectively, and then they managed to lift the sheep off the ground. The gnoll soldier couldn't help but sigh, as expected of our Captain Pansy, he can easily carry a whole ram by himself. At this time, Pansy was hiding in the forest. He was just thinking that if Kofer's method of incubating eggs was correct, the little majesty should be born soon. He also knew how big a dragon's appetite was, so he planned to go out alone to find some food. He led the wolf cubs mainly to teach them hunting techniques. Now that those wolf cubs are no longer holding us back, we can move much faster. Pansy lay on the ground and sniffed, and a surprising smell came to her nose. Stone-tusk boar. He had encountered the stone-tusk wild boar before while hunting, and he memorized its smell. The stone-tooth wild boar is famous for its teeth. This wild boar is more than 2 meters long and has 2 huge tusks at the corners of its mouth. The meat of the stone-tooth wild boar is delicious and firm, especially when it is roasted over a fire, the golden lard will sizzle out. Take a bite on it, it's really soft and crispy, fat but not greasy. Thinking of this, Pansy swallowed unconsciously. He hadn't eaten much today, so he just happened to catch this stone-tusked wild boar and offer it to his soon-to-be-born little prince. Thinking of this, Pansy's heart was pounding with excitement. He forced himself to calm down and began to track the stone-tusked boar along the scent. Character story: Pan Xi, does not take up the main word count. Occupation: Gnoll stealth warrior. Height: 2.5 meters. Species: Gnoll. Current strength: intermediate to mid-level, level 5. Deep in the northern forest, there is a clan of gnolls, the Bloodfang clan, and Pansy is the son of the chief of the Bloodfang clan. Deep in the northern forest, there are countless powerful beasts, and a clan of werewolves is really nothing. Therefore, the Bloodfang clan was on the brink of hunger and destruction every day, and even reduced to jackals looking for insects to eat in dead trees. Scenes of cannibalism were staged in the tribe every few days. The strong share the food with the weak, and the weak are just the food left by the tribe. Strength is the law of the werewolf tribe. Pansy inherited the patriarch's intelligence, strength, and wisdom since childhood, and showed extraordinary talent. Pansy has followed the tribe leader to hunt and survive since she was young. She has mastered the wilderness survival skills through hard work and experience. Therefore, even Corfer, who is under Molten Mountain Flame, cannot compare to Pansy in terms of wilderness survival knowledge. One day when Pansy was a child, Molten Mountain suddenly attacked and occupied the peaks of the northern forest. No one wanted to be an enemy of a powerful real dragon, so the Gnoll clan naturally became the Molten Mountain's army. The biggest advantage for monsters of becoming a dragon's army is that their survival is guaranteed. The molten fire wiped out all the powerful creatures in the surrounding area, which indirectly saved the Bloodfang clan, which was on the brink of collapse. Being able to survive in the cracks, the Bloodtooth clan is more than a little grateful to Molten Mountain. With her talent and hard work, Pansy became one of the captains of the Gnoll army under Molten Flame, and thus became acquainted with the rookie dragon man, Corver. From childhood to adulthood, Pansy has clearly felt the difference in how Molten Mountain treats gnolls and dragon people. This different treatment has gradually become a warning and motivation in Pansy's eyes. Therefore, his goal is to reach a high level, become a follower of Molten Mountain Flame, obtain the opportunity of Dragon Vein transformation, bring glory to the werewolf clan, and change this inequality. But accidents always happen unexpectedly. Pansy escaped with Kofor, Molten Mountain disappeared, and her dream of changing inequality also failed. During the escape, Pansy relied on the experience he had accumulated in his childhood to make the escape process smoother. Pansy's idea about the red dragon baby is very simple, that is to be loyal. Although Rong Shanyan is missing, she can serve Rong Shanyan's son. Of course, it could also be a daughter, after all, the baby dragon hasn't been born yet and Pansy doesn't know the gender either. He believed that as long as he did enough, the young red dragon would definitely remember his kindness. In this way, she could bring glory to the Gnoll clan and make the Gnolls be cared for by the red dragon just like the dragon people, so Pansy's dream of changing inequality is back. Pansy's dream is, Gnolls and dragons are equal. It's really strange for a werewolf to have such a dream. Chapter 6. Just when Zeris was starving, the group of Gnolls finally came back carrying the swift sheep. Through a group of Gnolls, Corver saw the shadow of the fast sheep from afar and rushed up in one step. When the Gnoll soldiers saw the dragon captain rushing towards them without saying a word, they scattered in panic. Even the two Gnolls who were carrying the ram dropped the ram aside. In the impression of the Gnoll soldiers, the dragon captain in front of them was as scary as their captain Pansy. Corver didn't care about the other Gnolls. He grabbed the swift sheep and threw it over his shoulder. While carrying it in front of Zeris, he complained, "How can I explain to His Majesty how slow it is?" Zeris, whose stomach was rumbling, was delighted when he saw Corver carrying a large sheep over. What a loyal and good guard! Corver knelt on one knee and respectfully placed the swift sheep in front of Zeris. "My lord, please eat." Zeris looked at the big ram in front of him, hesitated slightly, and without being too polite, he pounced directly on the ram. The dragon's mouth opened and closed, tearing a large bloody piece from the ram's body, and the torn flesh was chewed in Zeris' mouth. After taking a bite, Zeris found that the mutton was not as fishy and hard to swallow as he had imagined. On the contrary, due to the different taste buds of dragons, the meat was unusually delicious. The muscles of the Jiang sheep are firm and solid, with no excess fat, and they are full of substance. Corver watched the young dragon eat patiently. He discovered that when the young dragon in front of him was tearing the flesh and bones of the ram, its originally not so strong body and limbs were actually gradually becoming fuller. Corver marveled inwardly, as expected of a dragon's digestion speed. It can completely digest food right after swallowing it, and quickly convert it into nutrients for its body. No wonder baby dragons can eat food twice their size. Before this, Kofor had only heard about this kind of thing from others and had never seen it with his own eyes. Because there are only other dragons around when the baby dragon is born, it is difficult for other species to observe this phenomenon. Even creatures like dragonmen who possess part of the dragon's bloodline are regarded as inferior creatures by the proud red dragons and are not allowed to approach the baby dragons when they are born. After all, there are so many creatures with dragon blood, so what is a dragon man? You know, even the lowest and most humble kobolds have almost no dragon blood in them. Soon, the entire ram was in Zeris' stomach, and its bones were ground into debris by the young dragon's powerful bite force, and then swallowed into its stomach along with its flesh and blood. After eating and drinking, Zeris rubbed his stomach with satisfaction. Then, a surge of sleepiness instantly swept over his brain. The sleepiness was overwhelming, and Zeris finally fell asleep. Not long after, Pansy also came back carrying the stone-tusk boar. For Pansy, hunting stone-tusk wild boars is obviously much easier than hunting fast-moving and hard-to-catch wild sheep. The strength of an adult stone-tusk boar can be ranked among the beasts that have just entered the second level. Relying on its fangs and hard skin, it saw that Pansy was the only gnoll, so it rushed towards Pansy angrily. The result is of course obvious. How could a mere low-level beast dare to do that? Pansy drew the dagger from her waist, nimbly dodged the wild boar's frontal charge by moving sideways, and easily pierced the head of the ignorant stone-tusk wild boar. The stone-tusk wild boar rushed to heaven. Seeing the sleeping baby dragon not far away, Pansy's face showed obvious excitement. Without saying a word, she put the stone-tusk boar on the ground and prepared to move forward. Corver reached out his hand and stopped Pansy. "Pansy, His Majesty is asleep, what are you doing?" Pansy was quite enlightened by these words. He calmed down and thought about it carefully. He decided that it would be better for him not to disturb His Majesty. But he couldn't suppress his curiosity. This was the first time in his life as a jackal that he saw a baby dragon. What is your dragon's true name, young Majesty? Corver waved his hand. The dragon's true name is too long. I can't remember it. What's your name, little Majesty? His name is Zeris Osiris. By the way, you guys are too slow in hunting. Tell your wolf cubs to be faster next time. I'm teaching them slowly. I don't know how the trainer taught them back then. He only taught them how to fight. He didn't even teach those wolf cubs the basic hunting techniques. Isn't hunting something that comes naturally to you gnolls? What the hell, you're born here. Don't you see where these wolf cubs of mine were born? They're serving as a combat force in the flame nest, not a hunting force. It seems that the training officer is still one of your dragon men. What? Is that so? I don't know about this, Abba. Kofer, don't try to play dumb. The two of them chatted enthusiastically, each of them looking at Zeris excitedly from time to time. Although he was immersed in a dream, Zeris found that he was currently in a state of half sleep and half wakefulness. It's sleep, but not entirely. Although he is sleeping now, he can wake up immediately and respond if there is any stimulation from the outside world. This is a special habit that dragons have evolved over a long period of time in order to protect themselves. Dragons love to sleep in, and they can sleep for a very long time, basically for several months. If the dragon sleeps as soundly as a dead pig, then the dragon slayer only needs to steal the dragon's home while it is sleeping. Not only that, Zeris also found that he could feel the changes in his body. Because the amount of knowledge contained in the dragon's heritage is too much, it is impossible to absorb and digest it all at once, so the dragon's sleep is not only a process of physical growth, but also a process of slowly understanding and digesting the dragon's heritage. No wonder dragons can sleep so soundly every day and yet become stronger day by day. The main reason is that these creatures are talented and can learn in their dreams. Zeris felt this state of his own and felt very strange. How should I put it? It felt like the same story he had heard in his previous life. What was the name of that story? It seems like, I want to kill people in my dreams? Maybe there really was a brave man who sneaked into the dragon's nest, intending to stab the sleeping dragon with a knife, and then was suddenly slapped to death by the sleeping dragon? P.S. Currently there are character profile cards. Such as Corver, Pansy. I'm thinking about whether to open a creature data card. For example, gnolls, kobolds, and other special creatures in the fantasy world. Some space will be used to introduce the corresponding creatures and their habits, such as height, occupation, and habits. Of course there will be pictures, but they do not take up the text. I am just worried that the biological introduction may be a little long, which may affect your viewing experience. If you don't want to read it, you can skip it, and if you want to read it, you can read it. So I want to ask here and get a consensus. Chapter 7. One night a few days later, Zeris opened his eyes after sleeping for several days. When I woke up, I felt hungry again. There happened to be a roasted pork next to me. It might have been put there by Kofer or Pansy. Without lamenting too much about the life of pigs, which usually sleep after eating and eat after sleeping well, he pounced on the roasted pigs piled beside him. A whole pig entered the stomach, and the originally shriveled body became full again. After eating, he looked at his body expectantly. Sure enough, when I woke up, my body had grown 2 full circles. It was only the size of a foal when it was born, and after only sleeping for a few days, it has grown to the size of a calf. This made Zeris once again sigh at the power of the dragon bloodline. Turning his head to look around, there was a bonfire burning behind Zeris. Corver was lying not far to the left, and Pansy was also sleeping not far to the right. Good fellow, this guard is really dedicated and provides close protection. There was not just one bonfire. As far as the eye could see, there was another bonfire burning a little further away. A large pot was placed in the middle of the bonfire, and a faint aroma of meat and grass wafted from the pot. Some gnolls and a few dragon people were resting around the big pot over there, and there were even faint shadows of patrolling gnolls in the distance. Although Zeris's movements were as subtle as possible, they were still noticed by Corver and Pansy. The two of them quickly got up and knelt in front of Vickers. Your Majesty, X2 Pansy followed Zeris's gaze and looked at the werewolf soldiers sleeping in strange postures a little further away. A trace of embarrassment appeared on her face. She was one step further away from her dream of improving the stereotype of werewolves in the eyes of dragons. Without noticing Pansy's expression, Zeris looked around his surroundings and recalled the dragon heritage. Although dragons are powerful creatures at the top of the food chain, this is only true for adult dragons. In nature, young dragons have natural enemies everywhere. Since eating dragon meat can bring unexpected benefits to other supernatural creatures, there are many wild creatures that are eyeing young dragons. In human cities, those countries also hope to contract and enslave a real dragon, so that they will have a giant dragon bodyguard who can live for more than 2,000 years, which is enough to become the most powerful trump card of the entire country. However, it is basically impossible to tame an adult dragon. Even if it is a young dragon, even if it is captured, it still has the pride and honor of the dragon clan itself. It will never willingly become a tool of others and would rather die than surrender. Therefore, this kind of cub is the best object for contract training. Even demons are proud to have a dragon that guards the house. But the adult dragon is too strong, and not only can you not defeat it, you may also lose your life. The weak baby dragon is just convenient. All races are very kind to baby dragons, so baby dragons have become almost the most popular creatures in the entire continent, and their mortality rate is naturally not low. If it is a baby metallic dragon, it is fine. Being in the good camp, the dragon mother and father will try their best to raise the baby dragon to adulthood, and they will not worry that the baby dragon will be suddenly captured by an unscrupulous organization and auctioned on the black market one day. Compared to metallic dragon cubs, colorful dragon cubs are much more miserable. At the age of 3, they are driven out of the house by their mother of dragons and left to fend for themselves. Quite a few 5-colored dragon cubs die in nature. Although the dragon heritage teaches the young dragon the pride that is unique to the dragon clan, it does not teach the young dragon to become a reckless man. It clearly states that the probability of young dragons dying is ridiculously high, especially red dragons. The bright red scales seem to show their existence in the eyes of other creatures. Therefore, when the 5-colored dragon is young, it usually hides in a corner carefully and develops in a dirty way. Once they have gained some strength, they will slowly begin to show their arrogance. As for where the baby dragon is hiding, there are too many possibilities. It could be in a cave, underground, under a rock, or even at the bottom of a rock by the sea. After all, as a powerful creature at the top of the pyramid, the dragon has a physiological structure different from other creatures and does not need oxygen at all. Although life is good now, Zeris will not sit idle. He had just arrived in this world and he didn't want to die so easily like in his previous life, so he had to at least be prepared before the unknown dangers came. The first thing is to have your own base camp. He looked at the 2 guards kneeling respectfully in front of him, Kofor and Pansy, and said seriously, "Tomorrow morning, we will go to the forest and find a cave that can accommodate me. We have been wandering outside for so many days. This is not a solution. We must find a base. I will live up to your expectations, Your Majesty." ×2. Chapter 8. The next day, Pansy gathered his wolf soldiers. "Starting today, you will not only go hunting, but you will also be responsible for finding caves." "Yes, Captain Pansy." Pansy warned seriously, "Remember, come back and report to me after you find the cave. Don't act rashly." The gnolls listened to Pansy's stern warning and became curious. "Captain Pansy, didn't that being clear out the powerful creatures in the forest?" Pansy glanced disdainfully at the stupid gnoll who asked the question. "Those powerful creatures? They are indeed powerful, but they only eliminated those creatures that Lord Rongshanyan felt were a threat to him." After saying this, Pansy turned and left without further explanation. Although the words were only spoken halfway, some smarter werewolf soldiers already understood what the sentence meant. Creatures that pose no threat to Molten Mountain Flame may be a deadly threat to them. Moreover, the strongest general under Molten Mountain Flame is at the master level. Without exception, those generals were Molten's followers, and when the Titans invaded, they chose to fight against the Titans together with Molten. All the gnolls present knew what the caves in the forest meant. Usually, only the small overlord of an area in the forest can get a cave that can shelter from wind and rain, which means that the owner of the cave is definitely not an ordinary person, but usually a powerful, solitary, and extraordinary beast. Although it was a bit dangerous, the gnolls chose to obey Pansy's orders and formed 4 teams to explore the forest and find caves while hunting. The dragonmen were led by Corver as the young dragon's personal guards. These dragons all have the blood of Molten Mountain Flame, so there is no need to worry that they will rebel. Near the flame's nest in the north, almost all the powerful creatures had been cleared out, and there was also a team of dragonmen and gnolls, which was a hasty gift from the Molten Mountain to its son, Zeris. Such birth conditions are much better than those of other five-colored dragon cubs. At least there are fewer dangers from nature. From time to time, Zeris also heard the dragon man Corfer tell about Molten Mountain's heroic deeds. According to Kofalar, Molten Mountain Flame was sleeping in the lava lake that day, when suddenly a powerful wave surged in the space. Immediately afterwards, a breath that the dragon hated the most came. The aura leaked out with undisguised arrogance, and even Kofer felt a strong sense of oppression at that time. Molten Mountain also woke up from his slumber. When he came out to look, he saw a group of lava titans appearing out of thin air. Reincarnation made a prompt decision and ordered his most trusted and most promising soldier to take the dragon egg and run away. As soon as the order was given, a brilliant red light flashed in the sky, coloring the entire sky, making the blue sky and white clouds appear as gorgeous as the sunset. The attacker cast magic without hesitation, and countless fireballs rained down one after another with long tails of flames. Molten Mountain Flame did not hesitate at all. As it flapped its wings and flew, it slowly recited a complicated and difficult to pronounce mysterious spell, one bite after another, as if it contained a tremendous force. The huge amount of fire elements around him were also mobilized by this spell, and they quickly gathered and swirled to form a giant vortex of fire. It was a spell that even Corver could not understand, but he could vaguely guess that the powerful and mysterious spell should be the ancient dragon language. Only dragons with pure blood and powerful strength can unlock the use of ancient dragon language in the dragon heritage. This situation also indirectly proves the high talent and strong strength of Reincarnation. Boom! Boom! Deafening explosions sounded one after another. As the last bite of the spell was read out, a wide-ranging crimson barrier expanded in all directions with the molten flames as the center, withstanding the rain of fireballs and the missile-like continuous bombardment, buying enough time for Corver and his group. As for the rest of Molten Mountain Flame's army, probably most of them were killed, because the aftermath of the battle between the two strong men in the sky was enough to destroy the ordinary creatures below. Now a month has passed, and the sounds of fierce battles have long disappeared. No one knows where the Molten Mountain and the titans who invaded the plain have gone. Zeris listened to this information quietly, frowning. Speaking of titans, Zeris's dragon heritage records the dragon's tremendous hatred for titans. Scenes of titans slaughtering and enslaving dragons were placed in the dragon's legacy. When titans were mentioned, these scenes slowly appeared in Zeris' mind like a projector. Almost the entire world knows that there is an irreconcilable dispute between dragons and titans, and that when the two meet, they will fight to the death. No one knows where the dispute between the two races originated from. Perhaps even they themselves have forgotten it, but this does not prevent them from engraving the hatred into their bones. Some peace-loving and wise gods also tried to mediate the fight, but most of them were torn to pieces by the angry dragons and titans. Over time, even the gods who maintained world order acquiesced to the conflicts between dragons and titans and did not interfere in the feud between the two races, because they were afraid of being dragged into this horrific struggle. If Zeris remembered correctly, according to the dragon's legacy, the dragon won the battle for the Tuscan Lee Plain, so where did this sudden titan come from? He didn't want to think too much, he was still too weak, but he believed that even if the dispute arose again, the dragons of Tuscan Lee would not be defeated. P.S. Ancient History, the origin of the conflict between dragon god, titans, and dragons in ancient times. At the beginning of the universe, there existed a nine-faced dragon god, Io. The nine-faced dragon god Io carefully created the dragon species. Dragons represent the highest realm of life in the underworld, so the best of the dragons can be no weaker than gods. The power of elemental chaos flows through the dragon's veins, gathering into powerful dragon breath that erupts from its mouth, turning into a ball of fire or a biting cold wave. In ancient times, the other gods had an irreconcilable dispute with the god of wilderness, and it was at that time that Io's arrogance brought him downfall. Io was confident in his own strength, so he contemptuously rejected the help of other gods and faced a terrible wild god named the Lord of Terror alone. In the end, the wild god named the Lord of Terror died together with the nine-faced dragon god Io, and Io's remains turned into platinum dragon god, Bahamut, and mother of evil dragons, Tiamat. Bahamut inherited Io's sense of responsibility and justice, and became the god of justice and protection. Tiamat inherited Io's arrogance, pride, and greed, and became the evil god of greed. The terrible king, the remains of the wild god, also transformed into the current Titan god. This is the origin of the dispute between titans and dragons, but due to its long history, most people have forgotten it. They only know that this dispute has intensified over time until it has become the situation of a life and death struggle that we have today. Chapter 9. At this time in the forest, the gnolls were divided into 4 teams, searching for caves while hunting. While the gnolls were looking for the cave, Zeris was naturally not idle either. He was slowly trying to control his own powers, such as low-altitude flying and breathing dragon breath. In fact, baby dragons are only weak when they are born, and they are able to protect themselves just a few hours after birth. Even the weakest white dragon can kill an ordinary human soldier just a few hours after birth. Even herbivores can run and jump shortly after they are born. As the top predator in nature, it is reasonable for a dragon to beat a soldier shortly after it is born. And relying on the dragon's own talent, a young dragon only needs a few days of sleep to grow into the strength of the first level, provided there is enough food. For example, Zeris is now at the first level. For an ordinary person, entering the first stage means that this person has become a professional and has embarked on the path of gradually becoming stronger, and this process usually takes several years. But as the giant dragon at the top of the pyramid, Zeris only slept for a few days and he went from being a weak newborn to being comparable to a first-level professional. Of course, in terms of first-level strength, the dragon's innate skill, dragon breath accounts for a large proportion. Perhaps Zeris' current strength and agility are far inferior to those of a first-level professional, but dragon breath and flying can make up for this shortcoming. It is worth mentioning that the red dragon's breath is not simply a fire breathing, but a super high concentration of fire element magic attack with a large range and high damage. While Zeris was getting familiar with the dragon's breath, he was also testing the temperature of his own dragon's breath. He placed the rare iron wrist guard in the team on the ground, took a deep breath, and continued to exhale dragon breath. A raging flame roared out of his mouth, and the fierce dragon breath destroyed the iron wristband placed on the ground. The process of spewing dragon breath lasted only 2 seconds, but when Zeris looked at the iron wristband again, there was a trace of melting on the wristband. This surprised even Zeris himself. He had thought about the dragon's innate skills, they were very powerful, but he didn't expect dragon breath to be so strong. No wonder, across the entire continent, no matter how powerful the warriors are, they are unwilling to withstand the dragon's breath. What is the melting point of iron? 1538 degrees Celsius. You have to know that this is just the breath of a young dragon, and its temperature can reach 1500 degrees, not to mention the high concentration of fire element magic damage mixed in it. It may also be that I have the bonus of the achievement reward of Son of Hoenn, but no matter what, this is very powerful. When a dragon grows up, it will have more than just dragon breath as a weapon. Dragons also have unique advantages when fighting. Their sharp claws and strong muscles can easily pierce rocks, and their terrifying dragon breath can easily turn opponents into ashes. Thinking of this, Zeris now begins to look forward to his future life as a dragon. At this time, Kofor stood quietly by the side, fulfilling his duties as a bodyguard conscientiously. Obviously, from his incredulous look, it can be seen that he was also amazed at the temperature of the dragon's breath of the young dragon in front of him. In the forest, Scarface, the leader of the second Jackal team, made an unexpected discovery. There was a small slope not far from the stream, and halfway up the slope there was a faintly visible cave. When I came out of the cave, the first thing I saw was that I could overlook the stream below. Originally, they just thought that there might be a lot of prey near the water source, so they approached the water source and explored it carefully, but during this exploration, they discovered the hidden cave. Look here, guys, look what we found. A perfect cave. I bet Captain Pansy will praise us when he finds out. Scarface spoke with a smile on his face, but when he smiled, the scar on his face was visible, making him look more terrifying instead of kind. Scarface smiled and was about to go up to check when a jackal from the same team called out to him, "Scarface, I admit that Captain Pansy will definitely praise us, but what are you doing now? Didn't the captain tell us not to act rashly?" Some of the gnolls echoed, "Yes, Scarface, let's go back and report our findings in the cave to the captain." Hearing this, Scarface stopped where he was. He was also a werewolf, and a barbarian from the Bloodfang clan. The gnoll barbarians are absolutely terrifying to human adventurers. They have more sturdy bodies and more brute strength than ordinary gnolls. They often charge to the front line of the war, smashing or tearing the enemy into pieces with the weapons in their hands. However, Scarface's actions are rather reckless, and the scar on his face is the price he paid for his recklessness. This scar also serves as a constant reminder for Scarface not to make the same mistake again. Scarface hesitated for a moment, perhaps remembering his past experiences, and finally nodded and patted his teammate on the shoulder. Let's go back and report to the captain. Shortly after the second team of jackals returned, several irregularly arranged scarlet eyes emerged from the darkness of the cave, staring intently at the direction where the second team of jackals had left. Information about the jackal, public domain, with photos. The average height of a werewolf creature reaches 2.2 meters and weighs about 130 kilograms. Generally speaking, Gnoll society is a barbaric society based on force. The strongest Gnoll is usually the leader of the tribe, while the weakest Gnoll is usually just spare food. Of course, the world is so big that there are all kinds of things. The social structure of the Gnolls is not always like this. There are exceptions. Therefore, such a social structure leads to internal unrest among the jackals, who are always in a state of tension. Any jackal who shows signs of weakness will bring himself into an abyss of no return. Gnolls usually speak the common language. According to scholars, Gnolls learn very quickly and can quickly master new technologies. Therefore, many scholars believe that the main reason hindering the evolution of the Gnolls is their terrible social system. If they could be guided properly, perhaps the jackals would become an immeasurably powerful force. For combat, the Gnolls prefer to attack their opponents with their numbers, and they don't have the concept of single combat. If you want to ask for a one-on-one duel with the Gnolls in the name of fairness, I'm sorry, they will ignore your request and fight as many as they can. Imagine a group of monsters that are 2.2 meters tall and weigh 160 kilograms, skillfully using the group fighting method and rushing towards you. The Gnolls do not have surnames. Of course, this does not rule out the possibility that some Gnolls will use their clan names instead of their surnames when introducing themselves. For example, Pansy calls herself Pansy Bloodtooth. Pansy likes this last name very much. Chapter 10. You said you found the cave. Pansy's voice was the same as before, without any fluctuation, making Scarface unable to guess what he was thinking. Scarface still answered without any arrogance or servility, yes. Captain Pansy, the location of that cave is very good. It is near a small lake. Isn't it possible to alert the enemy? Don't worry, Captain. We came here to report as soon as we saw the cave. Well done. After a brief compliment, Pansy lowered her head slightly and thought carefully, near the small lake. Scarface, gather the other Gnolls. Let's do something big and take over that cave. After leaving a few words, Pansy turned and walked towards the Dragon Man's location. At this time, after Zeris had adapted his body, he fell down to sleep again. There was no other way. As a young dragon, the only things he could do were eating and sleeping. When Kofor saw Pansy approaching, he asked indifferently, Pansy, what's going on? Your Majesty has found the cave you were looking for, but it's a cave near the lake. Hearing this, a look of joy appeared on Corver's face, and then a hint of solemnity flashed across his face. Water is the source of life for most living things, and the caves by the lake are a great place to live. It can be said to be a good place for feng shui. Animals that come and go to drink water and quench their thirst can all be used as prey. But for such a feng shui treasure land, the owner of the cave must also have extraordinary strength, perhaps at the peak of the beginner level? Or perhaps he has already reached the intermediate level. However, Corver did not worry too much. Even if the animals outside the forest were stronger, it would only take a little more effort. He was confident that he could seize ownership of the cave for His Majesty. Sensing Pansy's arrival, the red dragon Zeris gradually awakens from his slumber. At this time, Corver was communicating face to face with Pansy and did not notice that Zeris behind him had woken up. A sudden voice sounded, Kofor, can I go? When Kofor and Pansy heard the voice, they looked at the young dragon at the same time, a hint of surprise appeared on their faces. They quickly stood up and lowered their heads in front of the young dragon. Corver said in a deep voice, Your Majesty, your orders always come first. You can go if you want. But... Corver changed the subject, we haven't found out what kind of creatures are in the cave yet. I don't want your Majesty to take this risk. He wanted to continue, with your current strength, it may be dangerous to enter the cave with us. But considering the red dragon's personality and temper, this sentence just flashed through his mind and was quickly ruled out. Pansy on the side also echoed, Ah, yes, yes, yes. Kofor is right. Corver on the side glanced at Pansy with contempt, and then carefully observed Zeris's reaction. In fact, Zeris also knew that there might be dangers in the cave. After all, even ordinary creatures knew about it, so how could it not be recorded in the dragon heritage? But what he unlocked was the achievement system. Although Zeris had been calling out for the system in his heart since he was born, until now, no sound from the system had been made, which made him wonder if there was something wrong with the system. What's more, sleeping all day long would not trigger any achievements, so Zeris planned to go and take a look together. Even if a fight broke out, he would not be affected by standing outside the cave, right? This series of thoughts did not take long before Zeris gave an affirmative answer. I'll just go with you guys. As you command, Your Majesty. ×2 Since His Majesty intends to go together, Kofor and Pansy naturally have no objection. Pansy stood up and said, we can set off now. I have already gathered the gnolls in advance, and the dragon people can come along as well. Corver nodded, then looked proudly at the dragon men standing in a 3×3 formation, of course. Protecting His Majesty is our lifelong mission and duty, right? The dragon guards all held their heads high and knocked the ground with their spears in response to the captain's questions. They looked majestic and full of fighting spirit. Pansy rolled her eyes and said nothing. Arriving at the open space where they were before, the gathered gnolls gathered around a large rock and sharpened the stone axes in their hands, all wanting to have a big fight in the upcoming battle. Scarface saw the two captains following His Majesty, and ran over excitedly, kneeling on one knee to report the assembly situation. Your Majesty, the gnolls have gathered. With just one order from you, they will become your sharpest swords. Tear up the enemy and bring glory to the great dragon. Although Scarface's body was bigger than the young dragon in front of him, he did not dare to be negligent. After all, the two captains behind the young dragon stood respectfully, and behind them was a well-behaved 3×3 dragon team. Zeris responded calmly, well done. Back off and remember to be prepared. After receiving the order, Scarface stood up and retreated back to the werewolf team. There are now quite a few jackals standing on the grass, rubbing their hands and eager to try, and some of them are responsible for cutting down trees. Since the team escaped to the outskirts of the woods, Corver lit a bonfire, and then Pansy arranged for the gnolls to cut wood to keep the bonfire burning normally. These jackals have long been bored of spending their days either resting or cutting wood. They would rather join more dangerous hunting teams than swinging axes at trees all day long. So the most excited people when we went to the cave this time were these werewolf lumberjacks. The leader of the logging team was a bald and strong jackal, and everyone called him Bald Chiang. After getting ready, the whole team headed towards the cave together. Chapter 11. The journey was not far. After just over 2 hours of walking, you could see the clear small lake in the forest. If you look closely, you will find that there is a cave on the slope farther away from the lake, and there are some animals drinking water by the lake. I have to say, this is indeed a feng shui treasure land. You can see food as soon as you come out of the cave, just like a otaku takes a nap and wakes up after just walking out of the room to get food. An antelope beside the lake was feeling uneasy. It looked around while drinking water. Although it did not see the hunter, it still ran away. This running was not a big deal, but it alarmed other herbivores that were drinking water. Even animals know that the lakeside is a dangerous area, and who knows if any of them will be lucky enough to be caught and eaten. All the animals did not want to be the lucky one. When they saw the antelope running away, they mistakenly thought that the predator was lying in ambush in the dark, so they started to scatter in all directions, startling the birds. Pansy just looked at the escaped animals calmly and did not order a chase because they had more important things to do. The whole team sneaked to the front of the cave in a more low-key manner. The height of the entire cave reaches 4 meters, and the width is more than 3 meters, which is enough to accommodate 3 strong werewolf warriors walking side by side. Looking from the outside into the cave, it is pitch black inside and the view is not very far. Even the gnolls and dragonmen with low light vision cannot see the end. When everyone gathered in front of the cave, there was no movement inside the cave, which made Corver frown. This is not normal. Even if the owner of the cave is slow, it is impossible that he has not reacted until now. You have to know that a group of people like you are now standing at its doorstep in a swaggering manner. A hot-tempered little bully in a region will never allow this to happen. There is only one possibility, that the owner of the cave is a hidden and ambushing hunter. He carefully checked the cave again to make sure there were no traps and the surrounding terrain was normal. Then, Kofor turned to the dragon man beside him and gave an order, "You, protect His Majesty." The dragon team members nodded without saying anything, and quietly moved closer to Zeris, like soldiers following orders. Zeris Benlong didn't say much. Who would object to having a few more bodyguards? After giving the order, Corver looked back at Zeris. Compared to creatures like gnolls and dragonmen that have low light vision, dragons have dark vision, which means that dragons can clearly see things in the dark, so Zeris can see deeper into the cave. But at this moment, Zeris had a trace of helplessness on his face. Be careful, this cave is deep and I haven't found anything so far. Kofor turned his gaze again to Pansy, who was also frowning. It was obvious that Pansy had also guessed the identity of the cave owner. After the two exchanged glances, Pansy turned her attention to her own Wolfman team members. Pansy remembered a saying among humans, train your soldiers for 1,000 days and deploy them only for a moment. This must be what this situation is about. After looking around, Pansy couldn't find any relatively thin werewolf members to serve as cannon fodder, so she had to randomly select 2 members. You two, scout the way ahead. Hearing Pansy's unquestionable tone, the 2 werewolf team members opened their mouths but said nothing. They lit torches and stepped into the cave cautiously. Then the whole team followed in, leaving a few jackals outside to provide support. The entire cave was light-proof. Not only was it dark, but it was also ridiculously quiet. The nervous breathing of the 2 gnolls ahead echoed in the not-so-huge cave. After twisting and turning in the cave, there were 2 forks in the road. Corver and Pansy looked at each other and split into 2 teams in tacit understanding. One team is composed of dragonmen led by Corver and Zeris, and the other team is composed of gnolls led by Pansy. It is obvious that Corver's team is more powerful. After all, these 9 disciplined dragon soldiers have all become first-level professionals. This is also related to the fact that Molten Mountain prefers dragon people with his bloodline, so the education and resources that dragon people receive are much better than those of gnolls. As a jackal, Pansy didn't say much about this, and didn't even have a complaint. After all, Molten Mountain was a red dragon, and all creatures on the continent knew what a red dragon looked like. The molten fire is slightly better to the gnolls. It is already very good that it does not kill gnolls indiscriminately like other red dragons. What's more, he feels much more at ease knowing that the young red dragon is in a stronger team. There were no extra words of farewell. Before they parted, Zeris reminded them, if you encounter danger, just yell. The sound can travel farther in the cave. Pansy was touched when she heard this. His Majesty actually cared so much about her safety. It seemed that her choice was right. He suddenly knelt on one knee. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. Get up and carry out your mission well. After getting Zeris's permission, Pansy stood up, walked into another road, and waved to the gnoll team members behind him. Let's go. Chapter 12. They went their separate ways, and halfway through the cave, Zeris suddenly spoke up. Stop. Don't move. Corver stopped in confusion, and the dragonman guarding Zeris also stopped. Unlike the dragonman's low-light vision, the dragon's dark vision can undoubtedly see more clearly in the cave, and dragon's vision is inherently more acute. Look over there. Following Zeris's line of sight, I saw that in front of me, even the dragonman Corver hadn't noticed, there was a tripwire so thin that it was barely noticeable close to the ground. This discovery undoubtedly surprised everyone. They believed that ordinary wild beasts would never be able to perform such advanced operations as setting tripwires and traps. Zeris also quickly searched for traces of this kind of creature in the dragon heritage, but how could he find it with just a trap? There are so many creatures that can make traps. Any intelligent creature that is a little smart can make a simple trap. Could the caves be populated by another pack of wild gnolls? Or maybe goblins? As soon as this idea came to mind, Zeris rejected it. The chaotic and barbaric gnolls would never be able to set up such a trap, and the same could be said for the noisy goblins. Could it be a human? But it is impossible for a human to live in a cave, unless it is to escape from the killer. After much thought and no answer, Zeris decided to try it himself. He ordered the dragonmen surrounding him to make way for him, and then he walked to the tripwire alone. Corver kept half a body length behind Zeris, making sure he could protect his master immediately after any sudden change. Zeris exhaled heavily, and a tiny flame emerged from his nostrils, instantly burning the entire wire. At this moment, an extremely faint smell appeared in the air, which was the smell of burning things. Although the dragon man did not notice it, the red dragon was extremely sensitive to the smell. In just a moment, he identified the gas. Sulfur dioxide. Chemical symbol, SO2, red dragon often deals with sulfur, so the smell is very familiar. Protein contains sulfur, so the tripwire in front of you is made of protein, not cellulose. Since it is protein, it is possible that it is made of biological materials. In addition, this tripwire is not easy to detect and is almost translucent. Moreover, since it can be used as a tripwire, its toughness should be relatively good, at least enough to drive the operation of the entire trap, so it can exclude other debris such as animal hair. Combined with the environment of the cave, we can infer the creatures that live in the cave. The tripwire in front of us is made of spider silk. This series of elimination methods, like computer operations in previous lives, relies to a greater extent on the giant encyclopedia Dragon Heritage. The knowledge it covers is so broad, combined with one's own modern scientific thinking. You just need to search your memory and eliminate a large portion of the wrong answers to get the correct answer. Sure enough, the knowledge passed down from generation to generation by our ancestors is very useful. Of course, this is also inseparable from Zeris's careful thinking. If it were an ordinary red dragon cub, it would have rushed up recklessly by now. With a precise target in mind, Zeris began searching for the corresponding creature in Dragon Heritage. Can use spider silk and make traps. The final result is, Heir monster. With pictures, the it monster is a relatively rare monster. It is a humanoid spider creature. They usually live deep in the forest. However, the it monster in front of us actually lives in a cave. Considering that the deep forest was the territory of the molten mountain flame, it doesn't seem so strange that the itman lives in the cave. It's just that it's afraid of the red dragon. The iter uses special glands in its abdomen to secrete spider silk and make traps. It is worth noting that where there are iters, there must be spiders, because iters always live together with various other kinds of spiders. The iter monster even acts like a shepherd, watching over, feeding, and managing the spiders. At this time, the long-lost system voice sounded again. Congratulations to the host for completing the achievement, I am the best at reasoning. Completion conditions, like a computer, quickly reason and come up with the correct answer. Get reward, D-level, Dragon Brain Computer. Dragon Brain Computer, it is faster and more detailed in understanding, accepting, and judging information, but the price is that it requires several times more mental power than before. Zeris was delighted. As expected, if you go out often, you might easily accomplish something wonderful. The reward for this achievement seems to be pretty good. It is like having an auxiliary during the battle, which can make up for the disadvantage of insufficient combat experience. Although the mental consumption will also increase, it may save your life at the critical moment. At the same time, in another passage, Pansy's nose twitched slightly, and he seemed unusually cautious in the cave. Suddenly, he frowned and stopped. He spoke solemnly, "The smell here is wrong. I smell a different scent. Be careful next time." Upon hearing this, the Jackal team members were extremely surprised. You know, the sense of smell of a jackal is even comparable to that of a hound that tracks by scent. Since they are all jackals, they didn't notice any other sense, so why did the captain smell it? But considering the captain's size and strength, it may be that he has a higher talent. The gnolls began to grope their way forward slowly. The captain was too strict and they did not dare to be careless. After all, this also concerned their own lives. Sure enough, they found a spider web in front of them. Just when Scarface wanted to go up to check, Pansy pulled him back and pointed at the tripwire on the ground with a serious expression. Scarface looked in the direction Pansy pointed. There was a faint tripwire hanging in the air close to the ground. If he had walked over there just now, he might have triggered some kind of trap. Scarface felt a little scared. I almost got caught. Information about Itagwai, picture public domain. Optional, iters are human-shaped spiders, and their numbers are rare. They have a special affinity for spiders and often live with other mutated spiders. Moreover, these humanoid monsters can manage a group of spiders like a shepherd herding sheep. This is something that many scholars have not yet figured out. It may be the result of the itman's own affinity for spiders. Like a spider, the iter monster has silk glands in its lower abdomen, so it can shoot out spider silk to form a web. Not only that, they can also tie up, trap, and even strangle their prey. They naturally lay traps made of spider webs around their nests and hope that some lucky people will fall into the trap. When other creatures approach or break into the itman's territory, they will be quietly followed by the itman. Some of them will accidentally step into the traps and spider webs of the it monster and kill themselves, while others will be strangled by the it monster's spider silk or die from poison after being bitten by other spiders. Theoretically, etterlings can live in many environments, but they are most often found deep in the forest, and they do not live in harmony with nature. The forests where most eaters live become dark places covered with spider webs, and are infested with all kinds of mutated spiders, giant insects, and other terrifying predators. Creatures that venture deep into this forest quickly become lost in a labyrinth of spider webs hung with bones and relics. Eater monsters are the natural enemies of elves. In their eyes, goblins are extremely delicious food, and they will use traps made of spider webs to hunt these delicacies. Chapter 13. Just as the red dragon Zeris was judging the Ite monster based on the trap, a mutated spider turned the corner in the front corner of the cave passage and appeared in the field of vision, making contact with this team of dragon people. Corver, who was lowering his head to observe the trap, sensed a strange breath in front of him. He suddenly looked up, looked at the mutated spider, and swung the spear in his hand with force. Swoosh! The spear shot out, whistling in the wind like an arrow. The mutated spider discovered the dragon man, and before it could hiss to call other spiders, it was shot in the head by a flying spear, and green blood splattered everywhere. This process only takes a moment. When Zeris heard the sound, he looked and saw that the mutated spider had become a headless corpse. He tilted his head to look at Corver beside him and silently gave him a thumbs up. Is this the feeling of a strong person? He is a ruthless person. Zeris walked forward to check. This mutated spider was nearly half a meter tall and was a medium-sized mutated spider. As expected, almost wherever there are monsters, there are mutated spiders. Zeris stared at the mutated spider and briefly analyzed the length and current form of the cave. He remembered Pansy, the knoll in another passage, and ordered, Corver, yell. Ah! Your Majesty, why? Corver frowned, confusion evident on his face. You know, when the small spiders swarm all over the cave, no matter how strong you are, you can't resist the swarm of spiders like the sea. Corver also knew the principle of using human wave tactics to kill an elephant with more ants, but the red dragon actually asked him to roar in the cave to attract the attack of the mutated spiders. Zeris said in a deep voice, in the current cave, it seems that the spider controls the cave, but in fact I am in an advantageous position. You just keep yelling. After hearing this, Corver thought about it for a moment and suddenly realized the truth. From the very beginning, he was thinking about how to protect His Majesty from harm. This led him to fall into an inertial thinking, newly born creatures are very fragile and need protection, thus ignoring the exception of the young dragon. Dragons are not ordinary creatures. As powerful creatures at the top of the food chain, they have the ability to fight even when they are just born. Especially the dragon breath that the dragon clan is so proud of. Any human wave tactics would have no chance of success in the face of dragon breath, which is why only experts can slay dragons, because no matter how many soldiers accompany them, they are just serving as food. Although the dragon breath of the young dragon is not weak, it cannot last forever. Corver looked at the red dragon, and out of confidence in his master, he roared towards the cave. Roar! The roar hit the wall of the cave, producing an echo again that overlapped with the original sound and spread loudly into the depths of the cave. In just a moment, the hissing sounds of spiders could be heard. The spiders could be heard before they were seen. Immediately afterwards, dense swarms of mutated spiders swarmed in from the corner deep in the cave. Zeris was not in a hurry and continued to issue orders, 3 people in a row. Corver is in the front middle, and I'll be behind you. The 2 dragon men in front hold swords and shields and set up defenses on the left and right sides. The 2 dragon men in the back hold spears and attack the spiders above the cave. When you get tired, switch people. Swarms of spiders swarmed in, including small mutated spiders and medium-sized mutated spiders. These spiders gathered together densely, forming a terrifying picture that people with trypophobia dare not look directly at. Even the well-trained dragon soldiers felt their scalps tingle when they saw the scene before them. Fortunately, the dragon team with clear division of labor can temporarily resist for a while. The swarm of spiders rushing from the front are blocked by the swords and shields held by the dragon men. With the swing of the sword, green blood spills. Among them, Corver undoubtedly shared the greatest pressure of the entire team, using martial arts every once in a while. Sword chi slash. With a swipe of the sword, a sharp sword energy was released. The sword energy pushed the spider group flat like a lawnmower, causing considerable damage to the dense group of mutated spiders. At the same time, it reduced the density of the attacking spiders, making the other dragon members feel a little better. Occasionally, a few small mutated spiders would try to quickly crawl into the dragonman formation to take a bite, but before they arrived, they were smashed to pieces by the iron shields held by the dragonman soldiers. The mutated spiders crawling upside down from the top of the cave were stabbed down one by the dragonmen in the second row holding spears. Every extension and retraction of the spears would take the life of a spider. Although there are many spiders, fortunately the cave is not large, so the spiders cannot disperse and form a trap. The entire team of dragon soldiers were first-level professionals, so dealing with this group of spiders was relatively safe. However, looking at the dragon people's quickly moving eyes and the movements of their hands, they dared not stop for a second, and one could still feel their effort. All the dragons were busy killing the spiders in front of them. At this time, Zeris looked into the depths of the cave and vaguely saw a large figure appear and occupy the entire cave. The figure was getting closer and closer. After seeing who it was, a solemn look appeared on Zeris' face. Large mutant spider, Deaththorn spider. Chapter 14. At the same time that Zeris recognized the Deaththorn spider, Corver also saw the large mutated spider in front of him, and his eyes became even more serious. According to the dragon's legacy, the Deaththorn spider can be up to 2.5 meters long, comparable in size to a shire horse. The Deaththorn spider is covered with sharp barbs all over its body. Unlike ordinary spiders, they are also somewhat intelligent and have a very morbid sense of humor. They enjoy torturing their prey to death. A strange laugh was like a whisper and entered the ears of every dragon man present. Only Zeris knew that it was the Deaththorn spider's morbid sense of humor at work. Be careful, the Deaththorn spider has. Before Zeris could finish his warning, the sense of threat from the front suddenly increased. Corver shuddered and raised his shield to block. Clang! There was a loud sound from the shield, blocking the fangs attacking from the front. But at the same time, a scream sounded from the side of Corver. Ah! Not every dragon has such a quick reaction as Corver. The red dragon Zeris turned his head and saw a fang deeply pierced into the shoulder of a dragon team member. It was too late for him to remind her. The fangs of the Deaththorn spider can shoot out and attack its prey. Moreover, the fangs contain very strong neurotoxins. Once the toxins invade the body, they can quickly cause the prey to feel severe pain. At the same time, the other mutated spiders seized this opportunity and pounced on the dragon soldiers even faster. As if it had heard the screams of its prey, the Deaththorn spider's laughter became even more bizarre, echoing in everyone's ears. If it was a one-on-one fight, Corver would definitely not lose to the Deaththorn spider, and might even be able to kill it easily, but in this narrow cave, there were countless spiders around to interfere. The Deaththorn spider in front of him seemed extremely troublesome. Immediately afterwards, a huge pulling force came from the shoulder of the dragon soldier who was hit by the Deaththorn spider's fangs, as if pulling him towards the Deaththorn spider. As soon as the dragon team member was pulled away, Corver immediately noticed it, swung out a sword, cut the attacking mutated spider in half, and then quickly took action and pulled the dragon soldier back. Bloody! As Corver pulled it back, there was a crisp sound of the spider silk breaking. Hiss! The toy that was about to be in its hands was taken away, and the Deaththorn spider let out an angry hiss that echoed loudly in the cave. Soon after, more mutated spiders crawled out from the depths of the cave. Just as Corver's brows were furrowed, a familiar voice came into his ears. Corver, get behind me, as far away as possible. Yes, Your Majesty. Corver looked back and saw that the young dragon behind him had taken a deep breath and began to brew dragon breath, and the terrifying power of fire element also began to stir around its body. All team members, retreat. Corver made a prompt decision and immediately ordered his team to retreat. Captain Corver, Your Majesty. Some of the dragonmen were still worried about Zeris, but before they could finish their words, Corver retorted sharply, Your Majesty said to retreat, so retreat quickly. Stop talking nonsense, just obey orders. Corver led his team members to retreat, and Zeris, who was previously blocked in the middle of the team, was naturally exposed to the mutated spider. The concentrated flame in the dragon's mouth reflected the bright red scales all over its body, which was extremely obvious in the cave, like a pile of fire burning in the dark. When the Deaththorn spider saw the young dragon, its 8 eyes that looked like human eyes showed deep shock. Then a strong sense of fear surged into my heart. Red Dragon. This is the fear that comes from deep in the blood. As the creatures at the top of the pyramid, the dragons have conquered every plane of the multiverse, leaving a deep impression on all creatures. Among them, the 5-colored dragons are particularly special, and among the 5-colored dragons, the most powerful red dragon is the leader. Although the red dragon in front of him was just a baby dragon, it looked like it was obviously brewing dragon breath. The deaththorn spider is not a beast-minded reckless man. Even if it is the dragon breath of a young dragon, it does not want to try its power. In a panic, the deaththorn spider moved its body and tried to escape backwards. But his hissing just now attracted more mutated spiders, and these mutated spiders kept coming out of the cave, blocking his retreat. The mutated spider in the front also fled backwards in a hurry when it saw the red dragon brewing its dragon breath. Just like that, the mutated spiders in the front squeezed back because of fear, while the mutated spiders in the back squeezed forward without knowing the situation, and the entire cave was filled with spiders. The next moment, dragon breath spurted out. A surge of dragon breath carrying violent fire elements filled the entire cave in the blink of an eye. The entire cave was illuminated in an instant, as if a sea of red flames poured into it, drowning all the mutated spiders along the way. Even the screams of those spiders were drowned in the sea of fire. The mutant spiders that were touched by the dragon's breath turned into ashes in an instant. The deaththorn spider also became part of the flames with fear in its eyes. The dragon man behind Zeris watched as the young dragon's small body spewed out a sea of fire that filled the entire cave. Even though he was 10 meters away, he could still feel the rolling heat waves brought by the dragon's breath coming towards him. The dragons couldn't help swallowing. But when they swallowed, they found that the saliva in their throats had already been evaporated by the oncoming heat wave, and they swallowed in vain. Corver also looked at this scene in horror. This momentum even had the potential to surpass the molten mountain fire. The dragon's breath lasted only 3 seconds before it ended. However, at this time, the noise of the hissing of many spiders was no longer there. The entire cave was filled with silence. Looking at the rock wall again, which was originally covered with spiders, now there is not even the shadow of a spider to be seen. After being baptized by such powerful dragon breath, it seems that they have only one option left, turning into ashes. At this time, the stone rock wall was black with a mixture of red, and even the top of the rock wall was slowly deforming due to gravity, with a tendency to turn into molten magma. Zeris was breathing heavily. He was just a baby who was only a few days old. The high-intensity dragon breath that lasted for 3 seconds was still too much for him. Zeris turned around and ordered the group of shocked dragons, "Let's wait until these stones cool down before moving forward. This is a good time to take a break." Chapter 15. Zeris looked at the dragon soldiers. Only a few of them were injured. This was because the dragons themselves had scales, which were as hard as iron and blocked many attacks for them. As for the injured dragon men, although the mutated spiders are poisonous, these dragon men are all first-level professionals. In addition, the dragon men themselves have strong physical fitness, so if they are properly treated, the impact is actually not particularly great. The dragon people sat in place to sort out and adjust. Another passage in the cave. Pansy and his group first heard Kofer's roar from the front, and then heard the same roar from the back. Before we parted, His Majesty told me to yell loudly if I encountered danger. Scarface also stepped forward. "Captain Pansy, what should we do now?" The other members of the Knoll team also focused their attention on Pansy. Everything was ready. As long as Captain Pansy gave the order, they would be able to return to help the dragon Captain Kofer. Pansy looked at the front of the cave, then looked at the back of the cave, hesitated briefly, as if thinking about something, and then said in a firm tone, "Keep going." In the cave where Zeris is after a period of rest, the dragon people have finished getting ready, and this time the injured team members are at the back. The dragon man walked on the scorching hot passage, feeling the high temperature coming from the soles of his feet. He silently quickened his pace, and the shock in his heart was no less than before. If just now I was feeling the dragon's breath from 10 meters away, now I am facing the remaining power of the dragon's breath. All the dragons were thinking, what would happen if they received this dragon breath? There is no doubt that perhaps he is just like that group of mutated spiders, with no ability to resist at all. Under the dragon flame, all beings are equal. This time the passage was unusually smooth. Long Yan not only turned the spiders along the way into ashes, but also destroyed some subtle traps. Walked quickly across the hot ground. As you walk, you can clearly feel that the entire cave is gradually expanding, not only in width but also in height. Immediately afterwards, several large spider figures appeared before his eyes. These figures are all deaththorn spiders, and there are hundreds of countless medium or small mutated spiders surrounding the deaththorn spiders. In addition, through the deaththorn spiders, one can vaguely see a bloated human figure standing at the end of the spider group. If I'm not mistaken, it's the It monster, probably the boss of the entire cave and the leader of the spiders. Unexpectedly, those few deadly thorn spiders did not act rashly, and the two sides just confronted each other. Normally, such a group of spiders would have enough numbers to crush the dragon team, but what It Monkey was most worried about at this time was not the dragon, but the young red dragon behind the dragon. He had just witnessed the dragon's breath of this young dragon. He could even feel that all the traps he had set were violently destroyed in an instant. Even some of the remaining flames of the dragon's breath poured into the innermost part of the cave, burning large areas of the spider silk nest. This terrifying dragon breath power, is this really a baby dragon? Maybe it's an adult red dragon pretending to be one? You should know that when a giant dragon uses the spell to shrink, its body will become like a baby dragon. I heard that many dragons like to use this trick of pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger. A grown dragon. The It monsters would never dare to provoke them. Surrender? Or escape? If he surrendered, Itagwai had to consider the red dragon's violent temper. It was rumored that they would kill their subordinates as if it was a daily routine. If he was not careful and made the red dragon unhappy, the consequences would be. Itgar shuddered at the mere thought of it. What if you run away? If he could escape, that would be fine, but if he couldn't, he would still die. After all, how could a creature with two legs outrun the surging dragon's breath? Especially in this narrow cave. It monster regretted building its nest here. In fact, if the Itmen had a little knowledge, they would know that the performance of the young dragon in front of them is actually far inferior to that of an adult dragon, and even lacks that of a juvenile dragon. But how could Itagwai have ever seen the breath of an adult red dragon? The ashes of those who had seen it would probably have been absorbed by microorganisms by now, so he had only heard of it briefly. Just like modern people will be amazed when they see a mecha in reality, but they don't know, the seemingly powerful mecha is just a relatively low-level war tool for advanced civilizations. This is the lack of knowledge. Obviously, the It monster in front of him fell into this misunderstanding. Although Zeris didn't know that the Itman in front of him was bound by his knowledge, this kind of confrontation was exactly what he wanted to see, because he was waiting. During the confrontation, the atmosphere in the cave became increasingly tense, but neither side dared to act rashly. Suddenly, behind the It monster, a spider's scream echoed in the cave, breaking the heavy atmosphere. A smile appeared on Zeris's lips. Arrive. P.S. Guess what the pig's feet are waiting for? Omega. Chapter 16. Not long ago, Pansy led the Jackal team, not missing any details, checking step by step, carefully eliminating traps, assassinating the mutated spider guards, and finally successfully reached the mutated spider's lair quietly. Of course, it can even be said that all of this was arranged by Zeris. Ever since Zeris knew from the dragon's heritage that this was the cave where spiders lived, he expected that perhaps the two forked roads would lead to the same destination, the lair of the It monster. Based on my own observations outside the cave, I can roughly estimate how far the cave extends. So he chose to let Kofor roar loudly, firstly to convey a message to Pansy, the caves were connected. For Pansy, the roar came first from the unexplored front, and then from the explored back, which proved that the caves were connected and the end was not far away. The second purpose is to allow Kofor to attract more spiders and reduce Pansy's pressure. If Pansy does not fall into the trap, then she can directly steal the house from another passage. After Kofor attracted more spiders, he tried his best to kill them all with dragon breath. When It monster sees the power of dragon breath, it will naturally be afraid, which leads to the current confrontation situation. Of course, there was an element of gambling involved, but in Zeris's memory, Pansy seemed to be a talented werewolf, and he made the right bet. Pansy also used her brain a little more and calculated through the transmission of sound that if she continued to move forward, she would arrive faster than returning for support. In addition, Corvor's roar will definitely attract the enemy's attention. If he goes around them, he will be surrounded. As luck would have it, just when Pansy entered the lair, it was just that the It monster was confronting Zeris with all the mutated spiders. Pansy ordered her werewolf teammates to stay where they were, while she found another route out, and just in time she encountered the It monster that was confronting the dragon man. Pansy's profession is a werewolf stealth warrior, so he is better at stealth than ordinary warriors. And its mind was distracted by the red dragon in front of him, and he didn't notice the danger coming from behind. When Pansy went around from the back and saw so many spiders in front of him, he was shocked. If he rushed in directly, wouldn't he be dead? Following the principle of capturing the leader first, Pansy's eyes wandered among the spiders and finally locked onto the bloated figure. Those were creatures he had never seen before, and there were very few of them, with some obvious human characteristics. This guy looks different from ordinary spiders, and he's hiding at the back. He must be the boss of the spider nest. With this thought in mind, Pansy rushed out in one leap, unleashing all the strength of a mid-level warrior. He swept the giant sword in his hand, cutting many mutated spiders in half, and the cave was filled with the screams of spiders. It heard the scream and looked back. Before it could see the attacker clearly, it saw a fist as big as a sandbag coming towards it and hitting it in the face. Immediately afterwards, Idagwai was knocked to the ground by the punch, and a pain from his face swept through his whole body. When the it monster reacted, it was already stepped on by Pansy, and a huge sword was pressed against its neck. Pansy looked around and found that the mutated spiders were all looking at him, but he didn't dare to act rashly. He couldn't help but secretly feel lucky that he had made the right choice. He did not kill the it monster under his feet, or rather, he did not dare to kill it. Because this strange creature under his feet is his only bargaining chip. If there was a war between humans, if the leader of one side died, the soldiers might surrender directly. But it is different between different creatures. If monsters go to war with humans, killing the human leader will never gain unconditional surrender from humans. On the contrary, human soldiers will riot for this. Capturing human leaders is more restrictive than killing them. This is the situation at the moment. If Pansy kills the it monster under her feet, then this group of mutated spiders will definitely attack her without any scruples. Pansy looked at the it monster under his feet. At this moment, the it monster was standing timidly and cowardly under his feet. Pansy was secretly delighted and put more strength into her feet. If a human leader is captured by a monster, he will definitely commit suicide or ask the soldiers to kill him, so as not to become a bargaining chip for the enemy. But the creature in front of him clearly did not have the pride and backbone of a human leader. Chapter 17. That's Pansy. Corver saw the familiar figure through the mutated spider, and was so surprised that his tone became higher than usual. Zeris seemed relatively calm because these were the results he had calculated in advance. Pansy. Zeris and Corver shouted his name and tried to approach Pansy, but were blocked by a group of mutated spiders. Pansy also turned around and saw Corver and Zeris. He kicked the iter monster. What are you still standing there for? Why don't you let them come over here? Put it over here. It was in a complicated mood. He didn't expect that the jackal who appeared out of nowhere was actually a subordinate of the Red Dragon. He had no choice but to give the order to let him go. Let them come. Spider speak. After Itman said a few words that neither Pansy nor Kofer could understand, the mutated spiders that were blocking the way seemed to have received an order and wisely made way. Zeris walked up to it monster and said with a smile, I'm waiting for Pansy, what are you waiting for? Common language. The young dragon in front of him was grinning, but it didn't feel like a smile, but more of a threat. This smile frightened Iter, and he spoke quickly, I surrender, I surrender. Now the it monster doesn't care whether the one enslaving him is a dragon or not, as long as he can survive. Zeris was quite satisfied in his heart, at least the guy in front of him was not as stubborn as the orcs. The Iters themselves are not particularly brave creatures. After all, their main function is to set traps and launch sneak attacks, which is how they act like villains. If you can set a trap and act like a scoundrel, the it monster will never fight you head on. If you can survive, the it monster will never seek death. Seeing the Itman, Zeris couldn't help but think of the records of orcs in the dragon's legacy. A large number of orcs were tied up, looking like fish on the chopping board, but they were shouting, no victory, no death. This is the most typical case of being unable to think straight. In comparison, he still prefers it monkey. After all, it is much easier to capture it by himself. Just as Zeris was about to agree to Itman's request for surrender, another problem arose. That is, as a young dragon, I don't know the spell Dragon Vein Transformation. Dragon Vein Transformation is a special dragon language magic that ensures followers do not betray their masters. In theory, this is no different from a slave contract. But the difference is that dragons can use Dragon Vein Transformation to transform their followers into dragon descendants with dragon blood, thereby greatly improving the strength, potential, and lifespan of their followers. This is a huge enhancement. After all, the lifespan alone is enough to attract people, let alone the potential and strength. But at the same time, it is also a limitation, because you will become a slave of the evil dragon and live in fear for your life every day. Theoretically, Dragon Vein transformation can be unlocked and learned in Dragon Heritage when the dragon reaches its teenage years. But now I am only at the Dragonfly stage and I don't know anything. This is very embarrassing. After all, Zeris cannot guarantee the loyalty of the Ite after he tames it. Zeris looked at Corfer. As a Dragonborn, Corfer instantly understood what Zeris meant. Corfer shook his head seriously, indicating that he didn't have the contract paper. After all, he couldn't get such a thing from Rong Shanyan at all. Zeris frowned even more tightly. If Corver didn't have it, then it was unlikely that Pansy would have it either. While surrendering, Itman was also silently observing the young dragon. The young dragon in front of him looked at him with a serious expression on his face. It was horrified. Only then did he realize that he had forgotten something important. That is, due to the red dragon's brutal temper, it is very likely that it will not accept surrender and will kill the defeated on the spot. What's more, the spider cubs under his command have just offended the red dragon. Then, from Itman's perspective, the young dragon turned and looked at the dragon man, seemingly asking him whether he should keep him. The dragon man looked at him, then shook his head viciously, as if to convey a message to the young dragon, "We can't let this It monster live." The more Itagwai thought about it, the more scared he became. Could it be that he would not be able to escape death today? No, I don't want to die. But what can I do? It was stepped on the ground by Pansy, looking as pale as death. Oh, right. Don't dragons love money and treasure? There's still some hidden in my cave. Suddenly, Itagwai saw hope for survival and quickly spoke, "Lord True Dragon, there are still a bunch of valuable things in my cave, all left by adventurers who once invaded my cave." Zeris showed a delighted expression after hearing this. What if an adventurer was carrying a contract paper? You should know that contract papers are something that humans often carry. Because no matter what you do, whether it is a promise or a negotiation, a contract is always the best security guarantee. Lead the way. Pansy skillfully tied up the It monster's hands and feet and escorted it to the depths of the cave. Before leaving, Itman used spider language to tell the mutant spiders not to follow it. He knew very well in his heart that even a group of spiders would not be able to withstand the dragon breath of a red dragon like this one. It groans inwardly, "This red dragon is really an old fox. It still refuses to change back to its original form even now. Is it addicted to pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger? It pretends to be a young dragon to deceive and attack me." Chapter 18. The deepest part of the cave is a vast naturally formed space, a small kingdom built of spider silk. Large spider webs cling to the rock walls of the cave, on which lie the skeletons of many animals, and of course, some human skeletons. Because ordinary spiders have smaller mouthparts, they use digestive fluids to turn the flesh of insects into liquid, which they then gradually suck up. Of course, the same is true for mutated spiders. The mutated spider bites open the stomach of its prey and then injects digestive juices. This is a very cruel process for the prey, but fortunately the mutant spider's digestive juices have the function of digestive nerves, so that the prey cannot feel the pain caused by digestion. This can also be considered an anesthesia, otherwise the prey would really die in pain. As for why the digestive fluid of the mutant spider evolved into anesthesia? A strange red dragon who loves science left his discovery in the Dragon Heritage. The digestive fluid evolved an anesthetic effect to prevent the prey from screaming in pain and attracting natural enemies. Secondly, the mutant spider simply didn't want to hear the prey screaming for a long time, which would affect its mood. Led by the It monster, Zeris and others walked into the nest made of spider silk. The nest is very simple, paved with spider silk, and contains quite a few weapons and equipment, such as leather armor, iron swords, machetes. There is even a wild survival manual among them. But obviously, the wild survival manual did not tell these poor adventurers not to approach the cave casually, so they ended up becoming skeletons hanging on the spider web. These equipments were well preserved in the dry spider silk cave. As for the quality, in Zeris's current opinion, it is just average, not good but not bad. After all, red dragons have a natural ability to appraise treasures and can recognize the value of items at a glance. However, even this ordinary iron equipment is of higher quality than the equipment held by Pansy and Kofer. This is also a very normal thing. As the subordinates of the red dragon hardly cares about the equipment of his followers, and only cares about whether they can fight. Moreover, buying equipment requires money, and how could a money-loving red dragon spend money? In addition, none of Molten Mountain Flame's men knew how to forge weapons. Therefore, the weapons in their hands were confiscated when fighting other enemies. The iron weapons of the two captains were okay and barely sufficient, but the other team members all used stone weapons. These weapons are quite useful for Zeris at the moment, after all, they can enhance the strength of his own team. Idagwai was feeling nervous and observed the baby dragon from the side. He found that the real dragon was nodding slightly and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. True dragons love treasures, and my ancestors never lied to me. Zeris tried hard to search for traces of the contract paper in his field of vision. Because he knew that without the contract paper, this it monster would definitely not be able to stay. If the it monster could not be kept, then the large group of mutated spiders outside would not be able to be brought under his command. What a huge fighting force this is for the current young dragons. Although the sense of security it brings is less than 1/5 of that of the mother of dragons, accepting this group of mutated spiders can at least ensure one's own safety to the greatest extent. If you miss it, it will be a huge loss. Staring at the equipment scattered on the ground, these equipment were not magic equipment and were ordinary. However, among this pile of equipment, Zeris could faintly feel a hint of magic. He walked into the pile of equipment and dug inside, trying to find the source of the magical aura. At the bottom of the equipment pile, there was a dusty magic book quietly placed. Chapter 19. Magic Book. Zeris was a little surprised. To be honest, ordinary adventurers couldn't get this thing at all. Only spellcasters could understand the spells. Becoming a spellcaster is much more difficult than any other profession. You must know that a spellcaster not only needs hard work, but also needs magical talent. The talent for magic can be said to be possessed by only 1 in a million humans, which shows how precious it is. Zeris picked up the dusty magic book, blew gently to remove the dust, and spoke without raising his head, "How did you get this?" Although Idagwai couldn't tell the young dragon's emotional changes from his tone, he could still vaguely sense that this book was extraordinary. In order to save his life, he tried his best to recall and said sincerely, "Master True Dragon, it seems that this book was obtained a long time ago when we were still living in the forest. We ambushed a group of adventurers and got it. I don't remember the details." Zeris nodded without thinking too much, as not every creature has the sharp magical sense of a dragon. Other ordinary creatures, unless they are spellcasters, can hardly detect the magical aura attached to this magic book. The it monster didn't know that this was a magic book at the time and subconsciously ignored it, which is a mistake that many creatures make. Zeris looked closely at the cover of the magic book. The workmanship of the magic book is not exquisite, even a bit rough, but it gives people a sense of ancient atmosphere. He looked at the big words on the cover. Fire Elemental Magic, by Areta. Zeris smiled slightly. The name of this magic book was concise and to the point. It didn't have any fancy names. This also showed that the author of Areta should be considered a calm magician. Open the first page of the magic book. It is a teaching of basic magic, fire magic, ordinary magic. Instead of studying now, Zeris continued to flip through the pages and found that the fire element magic recorded in it was ranked from easy to difficult, and from low to high levels. Although the fire element magic has only reached the intermediate level at most, it is very useful for Zeris at present. A good blacksmith must have strong tools himself. The young dragon itself needs to accumulate time to learn magic from the dragon heritage, but this does not mean that the young dragon cannot learn magic from the outside world. On the contrary, because dragons have a high affinity for elements, keen magical senses, and can speak dragon language, they are born with powerful magical talents. It's just that most dragons are lazy and don't want to learn magic. After all, they can become stronger by sleeping, so why should they work hard to learn magic? The magic book brought more than just this surprise to Zeris. There was actually a piece of contract paper mixed in the magic book. This Areta really knows my heart. Not only did he give me a magic book, but he also gave me a contract paper. Zeris took out the contract paper and closed the magic book. Then he used his finger as a pen and blood as ink, of course not his own blood, to draft a slave contract. Zeris handed the contract paper to Idagwai, "Sign it and you'll live." "Can I survive?" "That's fine." It looked at the contract paper and glanced at it briefly. It couldn't understand it, but it still planned to sign the contract. After all, as a prisoner, it had basically no choice. The it monster then pricked his finger and blood dripped out. Zeris did the same. As the blood of the two dripped, the contract paper slowly floated into the air and burned without fire, leaving no ashes. As the contract paper disappeared, a vague sensation appeared in Zeris' mind. He felt that he could now directly decide the life and death of the it monster. Of course, the quality of this contract paper is not high and cannot restrain powerful creatures, but it is more than enough to restrain the it monster in front of him. Feeling the connection between himself and Iter, Zeris breathed a sigh of relief, and Iter also breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, the system's mechanical female voice sounded again, I didn't expect that the host has already accepted a follower at such a young age. Congratulations to the host for completing the achievement, precocious. Achievement goal, do something that is completely inconsistent with my current age. Achieved, unlock reward, precocious. D-level, precocious puberty, you will grow faster. Chapter 20. After the contract paper spontaneously combusted without fire, the entire atmosphere became a little quiet, and everyone might not be able to adapt to this change for a while. After all, Itgwai was an enemy 1 second ago, and he was on his side the next second. After a brief silence, Zeris spoke, may I have your name? Master True Dragon, I don't have a name. Zeris didn't know how the It monsters passed down their heritage. Maybe there was no heritage, but at least there had to be a name, right? From now on, your name is It. It kneeled on the ground. Thank you for the name, Master. Zeris raised his head, showing the usual proud look of a red dragon. Get up, go tell your spiders that they will be my army from now on. By the way, this cave will be my territory from now on, take those spiders and place them outside, and don't come in to disturb me. But, Master, there is a powerful red dragon deep in the forest. I'm afraid. Zeris thought, could the red dragon that ITT mentioned be his father, Molten Mountain? But it doesn't matter, my dad's things are mine. Thinking of this, he interrupted Iter and said lightly, don't worry, the red dragon has allowed you to go out and live. When it heard this, he was stunned. Why would the real dragon in front of him say this? Suddenly, he thought of a possibility. Could it be that the young red dragon in front of him was disguised as the powerful red dragon that dominated the northern forest? The more it thought about it, the more it felt that this was very likely the case. Otherwise, who would dare to recruit troops in the red dragon's territory? As soon as this thought came to his mind, his spider eyes actually became slightly moist. Finally! I can finally go outside and see the sunshine. A few years ago, several teams of dragonmen and gnolls suddenly appeared in the forest and were clearing out powerful wild beasts. While clearing out the enemy, you can even hear dragon roars coming from deep in the forest. The dragon's roar was so soul-stirring that ITT was fascinated. The moment I heard the dragon's roar, an endless sense of fear came over me in my blood, as if a huge rock was pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. This scared the entire spider group at the time. It quickly led the mutated spiders to hide in the cave, where they hid for several years. Although they are secluded in caves and their safety is guaranteed, the number of spiders has not increased at all, and there is even a decline. Because it is not easy for spiders living in caves to go out and hunt for food, fortunately this place is close to water, so the spiders can barely survive. And today, I was lucky enough to have such a great person. For a moment, ITT felt a little touched. He had had enough of living in fear and not having enough to eat all day long. Thank you for your gift, Master. After leaving a sincere word of gratitude, it turned and headed towards the group of mutated spiders. Zeris felt it was strange to see its reaction. He occupied its cave, but it looked so grateful. But because of the slave contract, Zeris did not notice any malice from it, and did not speculate too much. In fact, what puzzled him the most was, if Itman was so weak, why could it lead the entire spider group? In a world where the strong prey on the weak, this situation is almost impossible to happen. There is also a saying among the people that the Ites are born with a physique that is close to spiders. Zeris does not know this, but he has to take charge of his own safety. Who can guarantee that the group of mutated spiders will not rebel? On the other side, Ite explained to the group of mutant spiders with tears in his eyes and a touching look on his face, its new master is the giant dragon that once entered the forest, but dragons like to pretend to be pigs and eat tigers, so it still pretends to be a young dragon. Now the red dragon showed mercy and not only did not kill all the mutated spiders, but also allowed them to return to the forest. The mutated spider's own IQ is not very high, coupled with the explanation given by its leader It. The spiders also knew that the red dragon had spared their lives. Who would want to be an enemy of a dragon? Especially a dragon that is pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger. For a moment, the feeling of gratitude started from ITT and gradually spread to the entire spider group. Even the deaththorn spider was infected by ITT's emotions. At this time, Zeris didn't know that he had been labeled a strange thing by the mutated spiders, the red dragon boss who likes to play the pig and eat the tiger. Chapter 21. It must be said that with the cave as a temporary residence, Zeris felt much more at ease. He himself is still a fledgling dragon, too young to have unlocked the workings of the magical elements in his body through the dragon heritage. I am not a native creature of this plane, Tescan Lee, so I cannot practice magic. Now I can only rely on sleeping to get through this period of time. Unknowingly, 3 years have passed. The spider silk in the cave had long been cleaned up. At this time, Zeris woke up in a cave. He stretched out lazily after waking up, and his joints crackled after not moving for a long time. He slept for a full 5 months, and all the accumulated nutrients were converted into part of his body. As soon as he woke up, an intense feeling of hunger stimulated his brain from his stomach. He hadn't eaten for 5 months, and now he was drained and urgently needed energy to supply basic physiological functions. Zeris looked ahead and saw a small mountain of meat appearing in front of him. Without much hesitation, Zeris pounced on it and took a big piece of meat in one bite, enjoying it to his heart's content. In order to ensure that he could have food immediately after waking up, Zeris chose the granary as his sleeping place. For a young dragon that is in the growth stage, every end of a deep sleep is followed by a strong feeling of hunger. The feeling of hunger was like the wall of his stomach being burned by extremely strong stomach acid. It was an uncomfortable feeling. Zeris didn't like to wait any longer, so he simply fell asleep in the granary in the cave. Of course, there is a downside, which is that the originally cool cave becomes warm because of the sleeping red dragon. This is the perfect temperature for microorganisms to grow rapidly. Therefore, the meat in the granary will usually go bad within a few days, but for this situation, Kofor and Pansy also have corresponding solutions. Throw all the spoiled meat to the mutated spiders, and the jackals and dragons will eat the fresher meat. The freshest meat will be placed in the granary for your majesty to eat. In this way, the granary is always supplied with only the freshest meat. As for the transportation of food in the granary, it is the responsibility of the loyal dragon people. As for the gnolls, Zeris only trusted Pansy. The mutated spiders don't seem to care about this, because they don't reject spoiled meat at all. You know, spiders have the good habit of storing food that they can't finish eating. Meat that is stored for a long time will definitely go bad, but the mutated spiders spit digestive juices on the food, so whether the food goes bad or not has no effect on the mutated spiders. Jackals and dragonmen do not have fragile stomachs like humans. With their powerful digestive systems, they can directly eat spoiled and rotten meat. Why deliberately eat spoiled meat when you can just eat better food? As piece after piece of fresh meat was fed into the dragon's stomach, after the dragon was full and satisfied, the original small mountain of meat had turned into a small pile of meat. Zeris burped with satisfaction and began to observe his body. After this sleep, Zeris's body had reached 5 meters in length, a whole circle larger than an ordinary rhinoceros. He was no longer the weak dragonfly he was 3 years ago, and his strength had reached the level of late elementary stage. An ordinary red dragon is usually only 4 meters long when it is 3 years old. Obviously, this is the effect of precocity. He casually picked up a stone beside him, held it in his hand, and squeezed it hard. The stone in the dragon claws was crushed into blocks by the huge force. Zeris nodded in satisfaction. I should have just entered the childhood growth stage now, and I have already initially unlocked the basic operation process of casting spells in the dragon heritage. Like humans, dragons come in different age stages. 0 to 3 years old, dragonling stage. The young dragons during this period are in a state of rapid growth in order to better cope with this world where the strong prey on the weak. Especially the baby 5-colored dragon. Since they will be abandoned by Dragon Queen after 3 years, they gradually evolved a physique that allows them to grow rapidly from a young age. During this period, young dragons need a lot of nutrition to support their rapid body development. 3 to 10 years old, the dragonfly stage. During this period, the young dragons learn some basic magic from the dragon heritage, thus initially unlocking their magical abilities. 10 to 25 years old, young dragon. The dragons of this period have more developed muscles and are more proficient in magic, but most cautious dragons may choose to remain hidden during this period and will not show up easily. 25 to 50 years old, teenage dragon. At this time, the dragons already have some strength to ensure that they will not die suddenly, so some arrogant dragons have begun to show off. Especially for the arrogant and conceited red dragon, this period of time is usually considered one of the high-risk age groups for the red dragon because they love to commit suicide too much. 50100 years old, young dragon. Most of the dragons in this period have already started to come out for training, except for a very few dragons that can no longer hide. During this period, Metal Dragon also traveled to various places on the continent at the instruction of his parents to gain experience and increase his strength. The five-colored dragons began to wander around during this period of time, or to subdue subordinates and build their own monster army. 100 to 300 years old, adult dragon. As long as an adult dragon has good talent, it has a good chance of entering the legendary level during adulthood. But no matter whether adult dragons have reached the legendary level or not, they all have the strength to gain a foothold on the continent. As long as adult dragons don't deliberately seek death, it is basically difficult for them to die. 300 to 600 years old, middle-aged dragon. After a long period of physical development, the dragon at this time has reached the peak of its physical strength. Even the dumbest dragon, even the idiot among white dragons, can at best reach the legendary level of strength as long as it survives to adulthood. 600-1000 years old, elderly dragon. After a dragon's prime years, it will gradually enter a period of aging, and its physical strength will slowly decline. However, with the passage of time, the dragon's mastery of magic will become stronger than before. 1000 to 2000 years old, a very old dragon. The dragon's magical power will now reach the peak of its life, but at the same time, it will enter an extremely old age period, which means that the dragon will not live long, and can only live for a few hundred years at most. 2000 to 2400 years old, dusk dragon. At this time, the dragon is already too old, and it only has a few hundred years left. A dragon in this period may die at any time. When they sense that they are about to die, they will look for a place where no one can find them, take their treasures with them, die peacefully, and hope that after death, their souls will be able to enter the kingdom of Tiamat. It is worth mentioning that, starting from adult dragons, a very small number of gifted dragons are able to break the physiological boundaries of the dragon clan and advance to become ancient dragons. The ancient dragon has a lifespan of tens of thousands of years and is extremely powerful. Advancement to an ancient dragon usually occurs in the prime of life. Theoretically, it can also be advanced to an ancient dragon in adulthood, but in reality few dragons have done so. There is a chance that old and very old dragons can become ancient dragons, but the probability is extremely low. If an ancient dragon with extraordinary talent has the opportunity to advance again, it will become an ancient dragon. The lifespan of an ancient dragon is almost infinite. If an ancient dragon encounters an extremely good opportunity that is hard to come by, it will become a prehistoric dragon. The ancient dragons can even enter the ranks of dragon gods. It can be said that most ordinary weak gods are no match for the ancient dragons. Chapter 22. Zeris stretched his body and slowly walked out of the cave. The cave passage was not very close, and along the way one could see two jackal guards in a group, lazily stationed on both sides of the passage, looking nonchalant. When the knoll guard saw Zeris coming, his originally contemptuous and casual expression became nervous, and then he secretly nudged another knoll who was standing and sleeping beside him with his elbow. The sleeping werewolf was woken up, frowning impatiently, turned his head and was about to speak, but he caught a glimpse of the red dragon Zeris from the corner of his eye, and he stood up straight abruptly. Then the two gnolls changed their previous laziness and bowed deeply to Zeris respectfully. "Your Majesty, good morning." ×2 When Zeris saw this situation, he didn't say much, but just nodded slightly. After Zeris left, the two gnolls wiped the sweat from their foreheads. "Your Majesty, didn't you see that I fell asleep just now? It seems. I can see it very clearly. It's over, it's over. If Captain Pansy knew that His Majesty saw me dozing off, he would definitely skin me alive. Along the way, we also encountered dragon soldiers carrying meat and preparing to transport it to the granary. Your Majesty, X2 Zeris simply responded briefly and let them do their own thing. When Zeris disappeared from sight, the two dragonmen began to whisper, "Your Majesty slept for a long time this time." Of course. Don't you see His Majesty's size? He is much bigger than last time. Yes, Your Majesty, I feel a heavy sense of oppression just by facing him. This is the real dragon. Another dragon man smiled, "Your Majesty has the purest true dragon blood in your body. That purity is beyond the reach of us dragon people. You can feel the suppression from deep within your blood. This is normal. You will get used to it after a while. Can you get used to this thing?" "Why not?" Zeris walked out of the cave and looked around. The originally lush forest was now completely covered with spider silk. It had successfully turned this place into a paradise for spiders. Zeris frowned when he saw this scene. Although his feeling was not very good, this was also one of the ways for the It monsters to survive. The Itmans also have a label in Dragon Legacy, Nature Destroyers, because they do not live in harmony with nature. The forests where the Etterlings live will become a dark place full of spider webs, medium-sized mutant spiders, death-thorn spiders, and other terrifying predators. Creatures who accidentally enter this web-covered land will be lost in the spider web maze filled with bones and relics. But to be honest, this area is really unsightly and affects my mood. The originally good Lakeview room is now gone, covered with spider webs and hung with white bones. But this also has an advantage, which is that it is more difficult for invaders to break through this spider web maze. Zeris looked up into the depths of the forest. Corver said that was the fire nest where his father, Molten Flame, once lived. Although Zerith was curious about the current situation of the fire nest, he had to consider whether the fire nest was safe now after the battle between the dragon and the titan. He shook his head and put the exploration aside. It would be better to talk about such a dangerous thing later. The most important thing at the moment is to improve your own strength first. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. Before improving his strength, there was one more thing he needed to do. I don't know where Kofor and Pansy went, but it doesn't matter. I can just do this kind of thing myself and treat it as practice. He flapped his wings, took off into the air, stirred up a gust of wind, and flew in another direction without looking back. Feeling the rustling sound of the wind in the air, Zeris thought to himself. At present, I have not ordered the clearance of the surrounding predators. According to the temperament of spiders, they probably will not take the initiative to attack. In other words, predators in various areas of the forest are still active. When Zeris first woke up, he noticed that there was not much meat stored in the granary. This is largely because there are other predators in the forest competing for resources, and what Zeris has to do on this trip is to hunt down all the predators around. In this way, the resources can be enjoyed by one person alone, and there is no need to worry about safety issues. No matter how strong the creatures outside the forest are, they can't be that strong. I have slept for so long. If I don't exercise, my bones will become rusty. I will put the study of magic aside for the time being and just practice this time. Chapter 23. The forests in the magical world are not like the blue planet in the previous life. It is common to see a tree over 30 meters tall. Zerith traveled high in the forest, looking down at the creatures below him. Although the shade of the trees blocked most of the sunlight, his shadow was still visible on the ground. Zeris is still in the young dragon stage. Although he consciously suppresses his own aura, there is still a trace of uncontrollable dragon power emanating from his body. The birds in the trees felt the suffocating pressure and took off in a hurry. A huge shadow passed through the sky, alarming all the herbivores on the surface, causing them to flee in panic. The area was thrown into chaos by the arrival of the red dragon. A little further away, a group of spider-like apes were confronting 3 stone monitor lizards. The chirping of cicadas in the surrounding area was silenced. There was complete silence all around, and only the heavy breathing of both sides could be heard. Both sides stared at each other, neither willing to give in. The tense atmosphere is self-evident, and now the 2 sides are in a situation of drawing swords. The leader of the spider apes in the front is called Spider Ape. He is the most powerful being in the entire ape group. The spider ape stared at the stone giant lizard spitting out its tongue in front of it, feeling heavy in his heart. I must not give my territory to the stone monitor. In fact, their territory was originally small enough, and there was a group of hungry cubs in the tribe. A dozen warriors in the tribe went out hunting every day, and they could barely feed this small tribe of spider-like apes. If this territory is given to the stone monitor, what will my people eat? Even though the spider ape has the strength of the peak of the initial stage, the stone giant lizard in front of it is no ordinary creature. As an extraordinary creature, the stone monitor lizard can grow to 4 meters in length when it reaches adulthood, reaching the powerful strength of the intermediate level. Some stone monitor lizards with extraordinary talents are even the best at the intermediate level. In addition, the stone monitor can spit out quicksand containing the earth element. Once it comes into contact with the quicksand, its movement speed will drop sharply, making the battle even more difficult. But fortunately, the stone giant lizards in front of them did not seem to have reached adulthood, and the spider ape could feel that their strength was only at the peak of the initial stage. But even if it is a minor, the stone monitor lizard should not be underestimated. It can be said that only this group of spider-like apes plus myself can rely on their speed advantage to barely fight against these 3 stone lizards. The stone giant lizard on the opposite side was also hesitating because it felt a threatening aura from the spider ape, which meant that the spider ape in front of it could defeat or even kill it. If it weren't for the last resort, the stone monitor lizard would not have risked competing for territory with this group of spider-like apes. The stone monitor's own territory was occupied by a large group of evil invaders who appeared out of nowhere. There is no other way. I am also trying to survive. The law of the jungle is the eternal law of this world. The 2 sides confronted each other like this, and neither side was willing to give in. Although he didn't want to be distracted, the spider ape saw from afar a group of birds being startled and flying out from the treetops while chirping. Then came the second and third flocks of birds. The startled flocks of birds were getting closer and closer to him. It seemed as if some terrifying existence was rushing towards him. Worry suddenly popped up in his mind, and coupled with the stone giant lizard in front of him, the spider ape felt extremely bad at this moment. Perhaps noticing that the spider monkey was distracted, the stone monitor lizard seized the opportunity and rushed forward, roaring with its mouth wide open. But the spider ape also reacted quickly. He came to his senses, clenched the rough spear in his hand, and was about to stab the stone monitor lizard when he suddenly discovered the concentrated earth element in its mouth. The stone monitor wants to spit out quicksand. The spider ape was shocked. As its 8 spider legs retreated violently, it changed the stabbing move of the spear in its hand to a sweeping move. It swept across the stone monitor's head, knocking its head off balance. The stone monitor's head was knocked off course, and the quicksand in its mouth naturally also went off course. The spider ape took advantage of the moment when the stone monitor's head turned and retreated to a safe distance. After the initial confrontation, both sides now understood that fighting was inevitable. Charge! Surround them! Without much talk, the spider ape roared and rushed towards the stone giant lizard. Immediately afterwards, a dozen spider-like apes also spread out their spider legs and rushed towards the stone monitor lizard in an encircling manner. There are not many stone monitors, and they were often surrounded by other enemies in previous battles. They also have good ways to deal with this. Faced with the encirclement, the stone monitors gathered together tacitly, with 3 stone monitors guarding the 3 directions. Then, they spewed quicksand from their mouths. Each stone monitor lizard only needed to tilt its head 120 degrees to cover the quicksand around itself 360 degrees without any blind spots. This is the way of dealing with things passed down by the stone monitors, and it is also the most effective way. Although the quicksand in the air would also slow down the stone monitor lizard, the stone monitor lizard itself had a fairly high affinity and resistance to the earth element, so the quicksand's slowing had little effect on it. Moreover, the stone monitor lizard itself was not an extraordinary beast that relied on speed to win. Soon, as the stone monitors breathed out, quicksand floated in the air around them. These quicksands fill the air, and their deceleration effect decreases due to the decrease in concentration, but this also increases the coverage range of the quicksands. The spider ape approached the stone monitor lizard and felt that his body was covered in quicksand filled with earth elements. Even simply swinging the spear required more effort than before. Seeing this, the stone monitor lizard was secretly delighted and swung its tail towards the spider ape. The spider ape frowned. He could have easily blocked the stone monitor's common tail swinging move, but now his body was covered in quicksand and he could only barely raise his spear. But fortunately, he managed to block the stone monitor's tail swing. However, the stone monitor was only testing the degree of slowing down of the quicksand. After all, different creatures have different affinities and resistances to the earth element. Its real attack is far more than just a tail swing. But how can the numerical advantage of the spider apes be ignored? Many tribesmen held spears and rushed towards the stone giant lizard with roars. The stone monitor lizard had just thrown a spider-like ape away, and then a spear pierced into the stone monitor lizard's abdomen. The stone monitor lizards are covered with thick scales, like rocks. Apart from the scales, even their skin is as hard as if they were cast with the petrified skin spell. But the bottom of the abdomen of the stone monitor lizard is its weak point. The stone monitors were also very aware of this. They lay on the ground and hid their bellies. The stone monitors, which were not very sensitive to begin with, looked even more clumsy when they lay on the ground. But this style of play also has an advantage, that is, it is stable enough. With the stone monitor lying like this, the spider ape obviously couldn't find a place to attack. Although the spider ape's spear stabbed hard at the stone monitor's body, it could only barely break the scales. It had no way to deal with the petrified skin under the scales. While attacking, it also had to be wary of the stone monitor's counterattack. The spider ape has the strength of the peak of the initial stage. Facing the crawling stone giant lizards, he is able to break through the defense of these lizards. Barely dodging the stone monitor lizard's claw attack, the spider ape stabbed the stone monitor lizard's body with its spear. When it pulled out the spear, it brought out a pool of blood, causing the stone monitor lizard to scream in pain. But the expression on the spider monkey's face was not very good. This injury was just a superficial wound for the stone monitor lizard, but the weapon in his hand obviously could not last long, unless he could pierce the monitor lizard's heart with one powerful blow. But under the protection of the stone monitor lizard's scales and skin, not to mention the heart, perhaps even the internal organs cannot be touched. This is also the reason why the stone monitor lies on the ground for passive defense in order to maintain stability. In the air, Zeris has a wider field of vision, and with the dragon's keen vision, he can see every blade of grass and tree on the ground clearly. Soon, Zeris discovered the chaotic yellow dust in the distance, as well as the spider-like apes and stone giant lizards fighting in the quicksand dust. Information about the spider-like ape, public knowledge, not included in the total word count. The spider ape is covered in black fur, with an ape-like upper body and a spider-like lower body. Photos attached. They are 2.2 meters tall, the same height as the jackals, but much heavier than the jackals, so they have 8 spider legs to support their bodies. The spider apes are hunters who live in rich forests. They are extremely agile, which is completely inconsistent with their huge size. The intelligence of the spider ape is not particularly high, but it is not low either. It is more like a barbarian who can survive in the forest. This creature is very wary of other species, but not cruel, and most spider apes are lawful neutral creatures. Of course, some spider apes corrupted by the abyss are chaotic evil. Chapter 24. Found it. A smile appeared on Zeris' lips. He spread his wings and glided down, releasing his dragon might without reservation. The spider-like apes and stone giant lizards in the melee froze at the same time, and a powerful force pressed down on them. The pressure made the spider ape's heart beat wildly. Looking up, he saw a huge red creature appearing in the sky, falling towards him at high speed. This is a red dragon. There was horror in the spider monkey's eyes. Run! It will be too late if you don't run now. The spider ape roared fiercely, waking up its confused tribesmen. Not caring about the stone giant lizard in front of them, a dozen spider apes ran away. The stone monitor lizard in the front was also confused. It twisted its body and looked back. Boom! There was a loud noise. The red dragon fell like a meteorite. The stone monitor lizard in the front was hit by the high-speed falling Zeris, and its spine and head were directly broken. It died on the spot. The remaining 2 stone monitor lizards were left there in a daze. The impact caused the surrounding dust to fly all over the sky. Zeris stood up straight, stepped on the stone monitor lizard that was smashed to death, turned his head to look at the 2 stone monitor lizards behind him, and then looked at the spider ape, holding his head high. I come here in peace. Do you think 8 legs can outrun the flying creatures? Stop struggling in vain. I won't kill you if you surrender. However, after he said this, all he got in response was endless silence. Zeris was a little embarrassed, feeling like a clown performing alone. When the spider ape heard the red dragon say this, he sneered and cursed inwardly. Who on the mainland doesn't know that the red dragon's words and deeds are inconsistent? Evil dragon! You still want to fool us? We are not brainless spiders. If you really surrender, how can we not kill you? This lie is so fake that even a 3-year-old child would not believe it. Looking at the spider-like ape running farther and farther away without paying any attention to him, Zeris frowned. He hadn't felt this embarrassed for a long time. Although he also wanted to chase it, the stone monitor lizard was right next to him. The spider-shaped ape is what I want, and the stone monitor lizard is also what I want, so I can only give up the spider-shaped ape and take the stone monitor lizard. The 2 stone monitors were quite obedient. They did not run away after seeing the red dragon, but their trembling limbs were enough to prove their inner fear. Zeris looked back at the 2 stone monitors. Oh, 2 girls again. Dragons share the same aesthetic sense with all creatures. They can tell at a glance which creature is good-looking and which is not. Perhaps in the eyes of humans, cats, dogs, goblins, and other creatures look the same regardless of whether they are male or female. But the dragon can accurately find out which cat is female and which goblin is good-looking among goblins, cats, and dogs, without having to look at the P to distinguish the gender. Even if the cave dwellers are recognized as the ugliest on the continent, the dragon is able to think from their perspective and find relatively good-looking ones among the cave dwellers. Because of this, when a dragon is in heat, even a sow can become lustful, and then, a pig dragon is born. This is also the reason why there are so many dragon-born. A large part of it is because the dragons are lustful. The five-colored dragons never bother to use protective measures. They only care about their own pleasure. Ahem, I've gone too far. I've gone too far. Zeris looked down at the stone monitor lizard that was crushed to death beneath him. It was a male. Zeris patted the dead stone monitor with a smile. Brother, you are so lucky. You even have 2 concubines. Stone monitors are not creatures that are completely unable to communicate. It's just that their intelligence is not particularly high, so they usually don't talk and prefer to act according to their wild animal instincts. He raised his head and stared at the 2 stone monitors in front of him, speaking fluent common language. Why did you clash with the spider ape? After these words were spoken, the silence of the stone monitor lizard made Zeris embarrassed again. He no longer had patience, and the dragon's mouth opened slightly, with thick fire elements gathering in it. Reptiles! Are you deaf and can't hear what I say? Do you want me to heal you? When the stone monitor lizard saw this, it became anxious. Was it going to be smeared in the face with its dragon breath if he disagreed with it? Even though the red dragon in front of him was not much bigger than him and was only in its juvenile stage, he could not withstand even the dragon's breath. True, Master Zhenlong, because, suddenly there were, spiders invading our territorial, we, were forced to come to other areas of the, forest. Stop. No more talking. This series of hesitant words made Zeris feel overwhelmed. No wonder the stone monitors usually don't speak. Even Zeris, the listener, finds it difficult, let alone the person who is speaking. From this sentence, he roughly understood the logic, that is, a powerful spider came from somewhere and occupied the territory of the stone monitor lizard. Zeris was still a little curious. What kind of spider could pose a threat to the stone monitor lizard? Where is the spider you encountered? Facing the real dragon, the stone monitor lizard did not dare to lie. It stretched out its front paws tremblingly and pointed in the direction. Zeris looked in that direction, thinking carefully. That seems to be my home. Stone monitor lizard information, not included in the total word count. An adult stone monitor is more than 4 meters long. As the name suggests, it is an extraordinary creature that focuses on defense. Ordinary stone monitors can reach intermediate level strength when they reach adulthood. Stone monitors have an affinity for the earth element that ordinary creatures do not have, but due to their low IQ, most of them cannot learn magic. Although stone monitors focus on defense, it does not mean that they run slowly. This is only relative to creatures of the same level. Chapter 25. In any case, the 2 stone lizards are now in Zeris's hands. Although Zeris had automatically learned dragon vein transformation from the dragon's heritage in his childhood, he would not transform for this kind of creature. The answer is simple. This creature is not very rebellious and lacks intelligence. It has difficulty in even the most basic communication. It is a creature with a high lower limit and a low upper limit. Although dragon vein transformation can enhance its potential, if the IQ is low, no matter how high the potential is, it will be useless. Instead of transforming a stone monitor lizard, Zeris might as well transform an intelligent human. Although humans cannot reach the strength of a stone monitor lizard at the beginning, there will definitely be no problem after improving their potential and training hard for more than 10 years. Moreover, humans are more scheming, and the transformation of dragon veins is like a slave contract, which can effectively control this unstable factor and make it easier to control. The 2 stone giant lizards in front of us have reached the peak of the initial stage of strength. It would be a bit of a loss to kill them, so we might as well use them as mounts for Corver and Pansy. Zeris looked at the 2 female stone monitors, and a strange thought came to his mind. If another male petrified monitor lizard comes, maybe he can use the law of 3 gives birth to all things to give birth to a bunch of stone monitor lizards. Then he will have an army of stone monitor lizards. Who could resist a legion of monsters? But unfortunately, this assumption does not hold true, because I smashed the male monitor lizard to death right at the start. To be honest, if Zeris knew this situation in advance, he would still choose to kill a stone monitor. Because the uncertainty of the 3 stone monitors was too great, if the spider ape and the stone monitors had immediately put aside their past grudges and joined forces to fight the enemy after seeing the red dragon, I'm afraid I would be getting beaten now. Faced with the siege, even as a red dragon, Zeris couldn't withstand it. You have to know that he is just a baby dragon now. Therefore, Zeris must demonstrate his strength to deter others. Is there any better way to demonstrate strength than to kill the giant stone lizard instantly? This action instantly broke down the psychological defenses of the remaining 2 stone monitors. The concept of morale has existed since ancient times, because fighting is not only a contest of martial arts, but also a psychological game. So after seeing the stone monitor lizard being killed instantly, the spider-like ape fled in a hurry, and the 2 remaining stone monitor lizards were also at a loss. This is the advantage of shocking the local people's hearts and defeating the enemy without fighting. Thinking of the reproduction of stone giant lizards, Zeris couldn't help but think of the powerful bloodline of dragons. Dragon blood can greatly enhance the strength of the species, and dragons have no reproductive isolation. Looking at the 2 female stone monitors in front of him, a bold idea suddenly emerged in Zeris' mind. Or maybe just do it yourself. Create a dragon-born version of a reinforced Kroxiger army? As soon as the idea came to his mind, he rejected it immediately. He was still a baby dragon, how could he do such a thing? It was not something he should do at his age. Putting aside the escaped spider ape and all the crazy ideas in his mind, Zeris planned to do his business first, such as taking the 2 stone monitors back for processing. He glanced at the 2 stone monitors and spoke solemnly, "As long as you listen, I won't kill you. Now follow me." Under the escort of Zeris, after a period of return, the stone monitors returned to the place where they once hunted, but the only difference was that this place had become a spider web maze. As they step into the spider web maze, the spider webs become more and more as they go deeper, until finally they cover the entire forest. In order to survive that period of weakness, Zeris had only lived in caves to eat and sleep, and he didn't know much about the spider web maze of the mutated spiders. But from my own personal experience, this is just like the spider's nest in the movie Halfling 2, The Hobbit 2, that I watched in my previous life. See the picture. Hiss hiss. Sensing the intruder, the hissing sounds of spiders could be heard throughout the area. There were many spiders wandering among the spider webs, staring at the 2 stone monitors with unfriendly faces, but because of the red dragon in the front, the mutated spiders did not act rashly. Gradually, more and more mutated spiders gathered around to watch, their eyes wide open with confusion, and they seemed to be quite curious about the stone monitor lizard that the red dragon brought back. When the stone monitors saw the huge number of mutated spiders, they were frightened and didn't want to move forward anymore. Who knew what was ahead? The red dragon seemed to have sensed their thoughts. It turned its head and stared at the 2 stone monitors with an unfriendly look. One could vaguely feel the violent fire element leaping in the red dragon's mouth. In desperation, they could only suppress their inner fear and continue to move forward. At this time, ITT happily crawled out of an unknown spider web. It tried its best to avoid the 2 stone lizards and bowed deeply to the red dragon. It welcomes the master's return. Zeris waved his hand and said nothing more. Take me to the cave. Yes, master. After saying this, it took the initiative to lead the way, while in his heart he was silently admiring the power of his master. Being able to subdue 2 stone monitors at once, doesn't this mean that his master is playing the pig to eat the tiger? Can a red dragon of this size usually do this? It firmly believed that the red dragon was pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger. With a leader, it was like finding the correct route of the maze. After going around many twists and turns, we arrived at the center of the entire spider web maze, the cave where Zeris lived. Unlike the dense arachnoid forest outside, there were almost no blind mutated spiders laying spider webs around the cave, including a large area by the lake. Even if there were, they were immediately driven away to other places by it. When they arrived at the cave entrance, they saw Kofor and Pansy standing outside the cave in an orderly manner. It seemed that they had received some instructions and messages, and the 2 of them were waiting here early. They didn't pay attention to this because the spider web has the function of transmitting information. It must have been it that told them in advance. Seeing the red dragon return, Kofor and Pansy knelt on one knee in unison. Welcome to my lord. ×2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you're notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.